Hello and welcome to the Labour Social Roundup of 2023. We're going to be looking at the whole year in review. Phil reckons this is going to... We're not going to be able to get through everything, so we're going to have to rattle on as quickly as we can. I'm Graham Hughes. That is Phil Morehouse.
Hello.
Down there. Hello. And so straight in. Let's just talk about what happened at the beginning of January last year, which was on the 4th of January. We got the 5 pledges, the 4th of January.
Did get the 5 pledges. Yes.
Right, half inflation, grow the economy, national debt falling, NHS waiting list cut, stop the boats. How are they doing on them?
Very badly. He claimed, by the way, I am just going to go with Graham's idea. I'm going to see if this works for making you think Brexit's a good idea. We're having a pint of wine tonight. So, the halving inflation. So CPI inflation has halved. It was said at the time that that's a bit easy. This is Shiraz, by the way. It's none of your European muck. And interestingly, 75 centilitres, almost like it's an international standard.
Oh.
And there's loads left over. That's EU waste, that is.
That is EU waste. That's
once
going in the EU lake, the wine lake.
Once we pay the exact same amount for our pints of wine, we'll not have any of that EU waste, you see. We're just a perfect pint of wine. But yeah, so CPI inflation halved. That was easy.
Yeah.
He could have made it halve instantly if he wanted to, but he didn't.
No.
But, you know, in summer, it was put to Jeremy Hunt, which is a bit easy. If CPI inflation is going to halve anyway without you doing anything. And he went, oh, yeah, CPI inflation. Yeah, absolutely. We mean core inflation. And then by the time, the end of the year, it was all of a sudden like, no, we meant CPI inflation. Oh, has core inflation fallen? No, core inflation hasn't actually fallen by half. No. We meant CPI. So, they'll have that one. No one's arguing with that one. The media certainly can't be asked arguing with that one. And to be fair, I thought for half a year it was CPI until Jeremy Hunt said that. Reducing debt, he keeps trying to say that debt's been reduced and the Office for National Statistics keeps saying bollocks, is it? Then he tries to say, oh, what I mean is we've got this plan that will lead to debt being reduced in a few years, to which everyone says bollocks, because this plan of yours requires over the next couple of years, well, it requires massive borrowing, incidentally, right up until 2025, just funny. After the election. And then, because obviously Rishi Sunak is expecting to win the election, he's going to embark on a 2 or 3 year program of savage public spending cuts. And then it'll be wonderful.
That always works for boosting the economy.
So that's what they're going to do. Labour in power, and they're going to go, we're not quite public services, you idiot. And then they'll go, but they're borrowing. We were going to get the debt down. We had this plan, you see. It was on a graph and everything.
He's stopped the boats, hasn't he? Oh, I just remembered. I've got these fancy little stings for each month. So we'll do January. Here we go. I don't know, Phil, can you actually see this? I'm sending it through to you. Here we go. Here's January. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Maybe. January.
This is going to. Have you spell checked them all?
There's 2 R's in February. There's 2 R's in February. It's okay. But yeah, so half inflation, grow the economy. The economy still hasn't grown, and in fact, it contracted.
We
in the
might
third
end
quarter.
we might end up in technical recession here.
We've been in a technical recession for 16 years.
No, well, we've had a stagnant economy. A technical recession means nothing when you've got a stagnant economy anyway, other than the fact it'll be very bad in the newspapers. So you may end up with a situation, the Tories are betting the farm on this May election. They're setting everything up for a May election. And then it might be that when they call the election, we're technically still in recession.
Yes.
We may or may not be in recession at that point, but in terms of the data as known, we will officially be in recession, potentially.
In real terms, we're in recession because the population has grown from 60 million to 68 million.
Oh, yeah, but they don't do that.
And the economy hasn't grown. So we're all poorer. We're all poorer, except for the super rich.
The Resolution Foundation today had a report saying, basically, even by the end of 2024, and we expect incomes to go up in real terms in 2024, it will still be no better than in 2006.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, worse than the Labour peak of 2008, just as the banking crash happened.
Yeah. So we've got that. So that's not happened. We've got the national debt falling, and that's not happening. We've got the NHS waiting list cut. When actually
they've gone up.
They've gone up. longer
Like
than
8
ever.
million now. It was 7 million. Now it's 8 million.
Am I right in thinking, because I've just looked at graphs, so I don't know the actual numbers behind the graphs, but I'm guessing that it's such a massive difference that if there were any, it wasn't showing up. In 2010, was anyone waiting more than a year for an operation in the country? Like anyone?
I don't know. I mean, again, you are right. There could be like little niche examples that don't show
Yeah,
up.
where it was a particularly difficult.
And or it might just
operation
be, or it might be. Sometimes you'll have an operation cancelled because you've got a flu or something, and they can't sedate you. So you might have someone who was really unlucky and kept being ill
missing
every time they had their appointment. But basically there was in real terms there was no one waiting.
That's crazy. Okay, and finally, stop the boat. Did he stop the boats?
Oh, well, interestingly, James Cleverly was boasting about the fact that for the first time since the small boats crossing started in 2018, there were no crossings on Christmas Day when we had a big bloody storm. Storm that was battering our gate and causing havoc in Scotland. Was it the A9?
The tornado in Manchester.
It threw someone's house away.
Oh, bloody hell.
So, but that had apparently nothing to do with it was obviously James Cleverly and Rishi Sunak that had stopped the boats for Christmas.
Yeah. Well, so what else happened in January this year? We had the government confirming it will not privatise Channel 4, which came as a surprise to the
everything comes as a surprise.
Culture Secretary Nadine Dorries, who thought that the Channel 4 was directly funded by the taxpayer, which it isn't. Andrew Bidgen was suspended from the Conservative Party for spreading misinformation about COVID-19. Former GB News presenter, this is the revolving door between GB News and the Tory Party. The former GB News presenter Mercy Muroki was appointed by the UK government to advise Kemi Badenoch. Great. And Prime Minister Rishi Sunak apologised for not wearing a safety belt in the car. Statutory penalty notice. Second one.
Yeah, his second one. So he's probably the first person in history to have been convicted effectively via criminal felony as both Chancellor and Prime Minister.
Yeah. Labour requested an investigation into claims that the BBC chairman, newly appointed chairman, Richard Sharp, had helped Boris Johnson secure an £800,000 loan.
Yep.
Guarantee.
Now, on wine terms, the Labour are also bashing the fact that the Conservatives won't release the data on their wine consumption between 2020 and 2022. They keep delaying it. And there's no reason. It's just like the figures are there. They don't need like some Nobel Prize winner to crunch the numbers.
This is the wine consumption for the party?
Well, well, at Downing Street.
Oh,
the mini parties. Obviously, they so there's some reason why the government kept saying it was, we'll release those figures. We'll release it by this date. And they got to that date. Sorry. No, it'll be by this date. And apparently they've delayed it 4 times. And all they have to do is announce these numbers. I mean, as an official obviously knows these numbers. They're written down already. There's no processing required. It's just how much wine was consumed at Downing Street between these dates. So, there's some reason why they don't want us to know that before the election, clearly.
Yeah, obviously. What else happened? So there was an investigation into Conservative Party chairman Nadeem Zahawi, his unpaid taxes. The Conservative MP. Jacob Rees-Mogg was hired as a presenter on GB News, so there was someone coming from GB News into the government, effectively, and then someone coming from from the government into GB News. Former Secretary of State for Culture Nadine Dorries breached the ministerial code by not consulting a watchdog about her appointment as a Talk TV presenter. And a few days later, at the end of the month, Nazim Zahawi was dismissed as the chair of the Conservative Party after an inquiry found a serious breach of the ministerial code over his tax affairs.
Not for the first time as well. He'd threatened people who were talking, like Dan Needle, the tax expert guy, the tax lawyer, was really going to town on talking about this. And he'd been threatened. But it turns out if you try to threaten a lawyer who knows what they're talking about with legal action, they tend to just laugh in your face.
Which is, And at the end of the month, the Commissioner for Public Appointments, William Shawcross, he stood back from the planned investigation into Richard Sharp's appointment as the BBC chairman because you wouldn't believe this, but they're all in it together, Phil.
Well, yeah.
They're all in it together. There's so many conflicts of interest. The Tory party just basically is a massive
This is like Partygate, isn't it? When it was supposed to be Simon Case doing the internal review. Then it
Yes.
transpired he'd been to at least one
He'd
party.
organised some of the
He'd
parties, yeah.
organised them. Sent
My
the bring your
word.
own beer email round. So then they had
Yeah.
to get Sue Gray to do it because she's basically the only one beyond reproach, which is why they were absolutely livid when Labour poached her.
Right, well, talking of that, we'll go into February. That's it. February. We'll also put a bit of the chat up in a moment. Hello. Right, we're into February. First of all, on the 5th of February, Liz Truss wrote an article in the Sunday Telegraph on her economic agenda and how it was all the fault of the woke, tofu-eating, wokerati, the blob, the blob.
Turkish delight eating tonight. This is the good stuff as well. This isn't like that synthetic crap in the supermarkets. This is genuine Turkish delight for Christmas.
A couple of days later, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak performed a cabinet reshuffle, and that's when Greg Hands became the Conservative Party chairman, taking over from Sahari. Grant Shapps became the Secretary of State for Energy Security and Net Zero, and Kemi Badenoch became the first Secretary of what did she become at that point? Was it Equality?
No, she's sort of the Equalities Minister anyway. She's the Secretary of State for Business and International Trade or something, isn't she?
Yeah. Secretary of State, a newly created department for business and trade. There you go. And then later on that month, Nicola Sturgeon.
You're going to miss out Michelle Mone?
What did something happen to her in February?
Oh yes.
Go on.
So it was being reported in the Times, even as well as the Mirror, that Michelle Mone and Douglas Barrowman, her husband, spent time living in this sort of £20 million London home, which was owned by an offshore firm, tax avoidance firm.
Interesting.
And it was suspected that they actually controlled the company, but they hadn't declared the interest. So there's an argument there that they've broken the law in not declaring their interest in this firm, because you have to say who has controlling interests in every firm registered in the UK,
right?
To avoid dodgy behaviour. So that was being reported quite openly in the Times and the Mirror. And usually papers like that are not going to report something like that unless they're really sure of their facts.
Yeah. My God. Well, yeah, okay. I was going to come on to Michelle Mone later on because obviously she did that interview this month, so that was going to come on later in the show. But we will talk about it, I'm pretty sure. Nicola Sturgeon was the big news basically in February. That Nicola Sturgeon, a shock resignation as First Minister of Scotland.
Until about 2 weeks later, then we sort of realised why.
And why was that? Because of a Winnebago that she
well, obviously there was about to be a criminal investigation, which nothing's happened. I mean, no charges have been laid.
Yeah.
It's been going on for a bloody long time. It's been going on almost as long as Mone and Barrowman. But nonetheless, the timing, at the time, I thought it was quite shocking. I thought, when she said, I've just bored with politics, like, behave yourself. So it was very weird at the time. And then about 2 weeks later, not so weird.
On the same day, Jeremy Corbyn confirmed that he will not stand as a Labour MP in the next election. Only for next month in March for Labour to say that Jeremy Corbyn won't be standing and get a load of grief. It was a month after he said it himself. It was like, yeah, he won't be standing. Oh my God, how dare you stop him from standing? He said he didn't want to. He said he literally said that he didn't want to. But Luciana Berger rejoined the Labour Party in February. She was the MP for Wavertree in Liverpool up until 2019 when she resigned over anti-Semitism. And some people don't believe that two of the MPs in Liverpool, we've only got 4, and 2 of them resigned to Jewish women because of anti-Semitism.
Well, I thought there was 6 in Liverpool.
No, well, there's kind of 5, and then you've got the sort of outer areas. You've got places like Knowsley, which aren't technically Liverpool, but yeah, let's say 5. Riverside, West Derby, Childwall, Walton, and Garston. Right. Anyway,
what's Tan up to?
What is Tan up to?
I've got Felicity Minge trending on Twitter.
This is what Tan did last night. She decided that she would get not Felicity. She got Johnny Minge.
Yeah, well, this one's trending now,
and now Felicity Minge is trending. But she's left Twitter now, so she won't be able to see it. She's announced her resignation from Twitter. And what else happened in February?
The
They
Windsor
announced
framework,
the
I
Windsor
think.
framework.
Yeah, it was voted on the following month, but
Yeah.
the deal was announced in February.
Yeah, that was February
which
27th between Ursula von der Leyen and Rishi Sunak announced the Windsor framework to
Basically, the only thing he actually did.
Yeah, to the chagrin of the DUP and Boris Johnson, who both whinged about it incessantly.
Yeah.
Which is fair enough. And we had we had the nominations for the SNP leadership election as well in that month. And I mean, there was Boris Johnson urging Rishi Sunak not to scrap the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill, which is this idea that we would somehow.
Boris Johnson went. He gave the green light to an awful lot of insane stuff when it was quite clear his leadership was under severe threat.
Yes.
It was a form of appeasement, and if he ended up having to go, a ticking time bomb of dog shit for whoever followed him.
Yeah, indeed.
So, but then it turned out Rishi Sunak was just able to say, actually, just we're going to chuck this out because it's a load of crap, in a way that he wasn't able to do with the Rwanda bill or the retained EU law bill. He sort of weakened one and just cocked up the other.
It's a bit embarrassing, isn't it?
Should have chucked them all out.
Yeah.
Not having that. That's bollocks. That's bollocks. Get rid of it all. What are you going to do? Change the leader a fourth time? I'd like to see you try. Whereas now they might actually do that because he attempted to appease the people who want to now remove him.
Yeah. Which is the thing is with Sunak is I think I saw Ian Hislop talking about this. He doesn't know how to be a politician.
He doesn't. Absolutely no idea.
He hasn't got. Did you see the video that they put out on Christmas Day of him doing Home Alone?
Yeah. Do you know what? That's funny as hell. It was. I actually don't mind that. In all honesty, I don't mind that sort of stuff. It's, I think it's like Boris Johnson's hair. I think there are more serious problems. If he was a decent prime minister and he just did that, you would just groan like it was a terrible dad joke. So I don't mind that at the end of the day. But what is annoying is, so it's not just that he hadn't the lack of parliamentary experience. He's got exactly the same parliamentary experience as Keir Starmer, for example. But Keir Starmer was actively involved in politics.
Yeah,
as a young man, he's sub-edited a Trotskyite journal. He organised local Labour groups, so he was very into politics all his life.
Yeah.
Whereas Rishi Sunak wasn't at all. He knew nothing. He just decided, it was just suggested to him, David Cameron, to be fair to David Cameron, the one good thing I will say about him, he killed my friend, was that he did say we need more diversity in the Conservative Party. And he made sure that there were people, and Rishi Sunak was one of these people, that there were people from lots of different backgrounds. And he said, we're not just giving them the shit seats that they'll never win for a tick box exercise. We're going to give them winnable seats as well. So Rishi Sunak took over from William Hague. William Hague had stepped down. So that was actually something good that David Cameron did. He said, we need to be more diverse. But Rishi Sunak had no idea about politics at all until he became an MP. And it's not like he's learned very much since.
No, he hasn't. No, it's kind of a little bit embarrassing. Also in February this year, we had, do you remember Lee Anderson expressing support for capital punishment? Also, Nadine Dorries said she'll stand down as an MP. Not that she's
in February.
No, she said she'll stand down in the next election.
Oh, right, yeah, I'm going to say she resigned after the Privileges Committee thing, didn't she?
And also MPs voted to raise their own salary.
Yeah. With Lee Anderson,
2.9%.
What was happening at that time, this is why I give Lee Anderson a bit more credit than someone like Jonathan Gullis, because Lee Anderson could see the writing on the wall. He had enough self-awareness to go, I need another career here. Because he'd come from a background where he was on not even 30 grand a year, ex-minor, right? Suddenly as a Tory MP, he's getting expenses for meals and stuff like that. And he's getting, 3 times his usual income. And he likes it, as you would. It's quite nice. So then he decides, right, I need another career to keep the Reddies coming in. So he was actively trying to big up his public profile, and he then, and was that in February or March, he then came up with what we now know was a claim that Reform UK had tried to poach him.
Yeah.
And then, in response to that, Rishi Sunak decided to make him deputy chair, which raised his profile further. And then, basically, a few weeks later, he was going to be a host on GB News at 100 grand a year.
My God, hate them.
But you have to at least credit him with a bit of self-awareness that his time as an MP was numbered, and he needed a new career. So he's not as dim as someone like Jonathan Gullis, who did you see his Christmas Day shenanigans? Well, he tweeted a picture of some coffee his parents had given him for a present.
Some chai latte tea.
I might donate it to Keir Starmer. I'm thinking, well, first of all, I don't see where the insult there is for Keir Starmer. It's almost like it's a tribute to like your God. Do you think Keir Starmer is this person you fear and you have to appease him? And also, it's quite rude to your parents, isn't it? Or do his parents hate him that much?
His parents hate him. Obviously,
every year they give him a present they know he'll hate. Like me, if you gave me coffee, I hate coffee.
Yeah,
I would absolutely be donating that to Keir Starmer if he likes it.
Ernie Burns makes a good point talking about diversity in the Tory party. It's not real diversity if they all went to the same school.
Yeah, it's not diversity of background, it's diversity of appearance. But it's still, I don't criticise that policy. I mean, that was David Cameron going, look, this is ridiculous. We need, So you can't knock that. Yes, it ended up still being basically people who think the same and have the same experiences. But at least
money will solve everything. No, making money will solve everything. Yeah. Just saying in the chat says, Phil, my wife doesn't follow British politics. She showed me that stupid Christmas video and said, this was the Prime Minister of England, and she wouldn't believe me. Well, there you go. Also, what happened in February? We had a vegetable shortage. People forget, our memories are so short.
Is this the old Brexit tomatoes?
Yeah. We had the Brexit sort of vegetable shortage where we didn't have enough vegetables because Brexit came along and ruined everything, as Brexit often does.
You basically have a bad harvest anywhere in North Africa and Europe, and we feel it first because we are the customer of last resort.
Yeah.
They'll supply us, but if you're supplying anywhere in the EU, it's like, right, make up a dispatch note, get it sent off. If you're supplying the UK, there's this big stack of paperwork. You'll need to do all this before you send it to the UK. Yeah, I'll leave the UK till last, I think. If there's anything left.
If there's anything left, we'll get down the drags. The stuff that goes off really quickly. Right, should we jump on to March? Should we head over to March? We've got WhatsApp messages coming out. March. Yeah. Right, so here we go to March. I haven't actually made that big enough for the screen. Oh well, it kind of worked. So we've got former Health Secretary Matt Hancock in March this year had his WhatsApp messages leaked and showing that he ignored advice on testing in care homes, and also it publishes his views on school closures. And also Sue Gray resigned from her post as cabinet.
I mean, I'll tell you what Matt Hancock ignored. He ignored the fact that Isabel Oakeshott cannot be trusted with anything.
So she was doing a biography.
Basically, he was too lazy to write his own book. Now, it's quite common to get a bit of a ghostwriter to help you out. I mean, if you're not an experienced author, you wouldn't you? What you don't do is get Isabel Oakeshott, who's like the most conniving, evil snake there is. What you don't do is give her a load of really sensitive, confidential records that you absolutely do not want revealed to the public. Which is exactly what Matt Hancock did, thus revealing that he is a prize idiot.
He is. It's kind of painful. And this was at the same time that the Committee of Privileges suggested that Boris Johnson may have misled Parliament over Partygate.
Naughty boy.
And also showed more leaks messages showed Hancock and the cabinet secretary at the time joking about quarantine hotels.
Yeah.
Probably wasn't great for the image of the Tory party. Also,
the civil service, because you had the cabinet secretary. I mean, yes, he has to do what his ministers say. He does not have to join in with them like he's one of the gang.
We also had Home Secretary Suella Braverman introducing the illegal migration bill, which is funny because it was illegal.
Yeah.
Actually found to be against international law.
Yeah.
Nice one, Suella. Oh, and the government also they announced that there would unfortunately be a 2-year delay in the Birmingham to Crewe leg of HS2. It's never going to get built at this rate.
Well, I mean, exactly. We also had the vote on the winter framework when a number of Conservative MPs voted against it, that number being pathetically small. But it included, I've got it up here, it's quite good. You've got like Peter Bone there, he's no longer an MP. You've got like usual suspects in there, Mark Francois, Jonathan Gullis, he's off soon, bye-bye. Bill Cash is actually resigning, as in retiring. Andrea Jenkins, Boris Johnson there, Danny Kruger, Priti Patel, Liz Truss, John Redwood, Jacob Rees-Mogg, the usual crowd. Nadine Dorries didn't vote against it. She was going through that phase of can't be asked to go to Parliament. So she was just in abstention. I'm sorry, I'm terribly busy in my constituency. What are you doing in your constituency? Putting my feet up and drinking gin.
Bugger all, old chap, bugger all. Yeah, so we had that, but on the same day that we had the deal for Northern Ireland, Boris Johnson was giving evidence to the Privileges Committee on Partygate.
He was not struck by lightning when he took the oath either. That was a
So he swore to tell the truth and then just lied his way through it, as he always does, blustered his way through it. And they just, well, I mean, we'll come to this, but the Privileges Committee weren't too impressed. What can I say? Yeah, something else that happened in March as well. Do you remember we all got a text message from the government in case there was an emergency?
Yeah.
Now, did anyone get that when there was a tornado in Manchester saying, look out, tornado?
Not everyone got it when they were testing the system.
Crazy.
There was it network based or something? But there was a lot of people didn't get it.
Yeah. It's
almost whether I got it or
almost
not.
as if they don't know what they're doing.
I've forgotten.
Yeah.
Oh, to be fair, when you're testing something, I mean, you expect it to go wrong, and then you fix what it was,
problems,
and then you would try it again, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Also in March, there was a sting operation led by donkeys, who we love, against former ministers Matt Hancock and Kwasi Kwarteng,
as well as a couple of others. Yeah.
Which showed them up for being the corrupt rapscallions they are. And there was it Matt Hancock, and he said, how much do you want? And he said,
10 grand.
Didn't he say 1 grand first? And then he said, 10 grand. Yeah, 10. That'd be better than 1. Just all the money. Just give me all the money. Really embarrassing. And again, I mean, this is the sort of stuff that I know. Hancock was no longer a minister at that point, and he'd already been thrown out the Tory party the summer before for going, I'm a dickhead, get me out of here. However, as you say, he's still an MP, and he still voted for the Rwanda bill last month. This month, actually, earlier this month.
That's because he wants the whip back. I don't know what's been told to him. I mean, I'm not getting the impression he's going to get it back, but well, you do get ones who had the whip removed who will vote with the government because they want it back.
Yeah. We also had Humza Yousaf confirmed as Scotland's first minister, and which meant that all the big parties were run by people who went to private school. Anyway, which
also upset people like Paul Golding, though, who's like an arch racist, because he will regularly post tweets going, "Oh, the absolute state of this country," and he'll post a picture of Sadiq Khan and Rishi Sunak and Humza Yousaf. Oh, you got a bit of a problem with these individuals, Paul? You're not putting a picture of Mark Drakeford there, I notice. You got no problem with him? What is it about these other individuals? Or the Mayor of Manchester, he's not on there. What is it about these 3 individuals you have an issue with?
Indeed, yes, indeed. So let's just talk for a minute about the WhatsApp messages and stuff, because the fact that all this stuff is already out in the public domain, and we're going to have this inquiry, the COVID inquiry. They reckon it's going to go to 2026? Is it?
Oh, I mean, they're not right. They've not even necessarily announced all the modules yet. Module 6, I think it is the PPE procurement one. That's going to be a big one. That's not even scheduled till early 2025, and things could get delayed, right? And once they've taken all the evidence, I mean, you know how long it takes to. I mean, if a public inquiry takes like 3 years to take its evidence, how long do you think it takes to write the bastard report? So yeah, we're going to be talking a long time before anything's published. Really, what needs to happen is you need the Conservatives are going to do nothing. Labour need to start implementing things rather more quickly based on, much quicker internal reviews.
Yeah.
Like they could start with Operation Cygnus. How about that?
Why did it take so long? I mean, what's the reason?
Because there's a hell of a it was very wide ranging, and I think that was deliberate. Because the last thing the government wanted was for it to be reporting before the election.
Right, fair enough.
So it was very wide ranging. Partly that was also to make it credible.
Yeah.
Because you could hardly have an inquiry where you go, there's no need to look at our decision making or procurement or any of the big things like that. So it's just there's a vast amount of data to go through and people to interview.
Yeah.
Absolutely immense undertaking.
Oh my God. Oh yeah, something that we didn't mention in January that happened. Prince Harry brought out his autobiography, Spare, which was interesting, to say the least.
I just view that as celebrity news, really.
I know, but I mean, I've been watching The Crown this week, so I'm kind of interested in the royal family again for a week. But yeah, I like the fact that him and Meghan, his wife, upset the gammon so much that they just explode. Do you remember Lemmings, where you make them explode?
Yes, I do remember Lemmings.
I just imagine the gammon just exploding every time Meghan does something, like eat an avocado or wears a dress or gives a child flowers or something like that, which is always hilarious. And also, I mean, I don't know if you regard this as celebrity gossip. It's not really, but like pop culture, I guess. Twitter's just this year. I probably need to discuss this because this is supposed to be a roundup of the year. Like, it has just changed into a absolute cesspit of racism and homophobia, transphobia, worse than it ever was before. And it's just abuse. It's just every time you go on there, so people give you abuse. And it's just, I don't know. I feel like Elon Musk has lost his freaking mind. And it's amazing to me that he's not in kind of legal trouble for promising all this stuff and not actually delivering it.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, I don't know. It's like, Facebook only got fined it was a vast sum, but was considered to be a tap on the wrist over Cambridge Analytica scandal. Got fined like $5 billion.
Yeah.
And it was considered they could have been in for a way more. Imagine that, thinking that you've got away with it with a $5 billion. But like you or I getting away with a £20 fixed penalty notice.
And also, just going back to March, there was a report that Liz Truss submitted a resignation honours list. It still hasn't come out, has it?
We haven't seen it yet, no.
Do you think they're going to...
I mean, we know there's a few people going to be on it, but, it's... it'll happen. There's obviously a lot of people on it that really shouldn't be in the Lords, and it's getting a bit of stick. It'll happen. No one will block it. I don't think even Labour would block it because of the... it's an unnecessary row if you do. At the end of the day, people shouldn't have made Liz Truss the Prime Minister. It's all that simple.
Well, we didn't.
We didn't.
It was
but no, well, we don't anyway. I don't really. Yeah, I
Some
don't.
of
really
who might not
into,
have even been British.
Yeah, I don't go into too much in that anyway because all prime ministers are unelected, so I don't tend to engage in all that nonsense. But at the end of the day, the Conservative Party were elected by a minority of the public, and they should have taken greater care.
Emma Price, thank you very much for the super chat. Could Labour, once in power, put a referendum out if the country wanted a referendum to rejoin the EU?
So we have a referendum whether we want a referendum or not.
I think we could do that.
We could do that. They could do what they like. They could have a referendum to ask if Keir Starmer should buy a new razor. I mean, they could do what they like, but whether it's sensible is another matter. Now, what Labour will do in the first Parliament is there's a lot of things they can do to align with the EU. Like, basically, we don't meet the requirements to even apply for EU membership at the moment. We can apply, and we can start accession talks, but we're not ready. Just like Ukraine aren't ready, but I mean they've started the process.
Yeah.
But we're not ready, so it's a case of, well, why? Given that you'd have to get ready anyway, why don't we get ready while it's still a thorny issue? Get ready quietly behind the scenes, and then see where, I think come the following election, I think we're going to be in quite a different place.
Yeah. Yeah.
I certainly look at being able to join, because at the moment you can't join the single market without some special deal that doesn't exist. But I'm really hoping this sort of like second tier associate membership thing kicks off.
Yeah.
Because it does make sense to allow countries to be in the single market and accept all those obligations without being full EU members. Because we know there are countries that are in the single market and not, say, the customs union. They feel that there's an advantage in that. Now, I don't think there is for us, but if there's easy stepping stones, why not?
Yeah.
And that's an easy stepping stone because no one voted to leave the single market.
Yeah. There was So should we head on? Should we press on to April? April.
Is this Greg Hansen, his notes coming out?
Well, not just yet. First of all, we're going to talk a little bit about.
He brought his note out in April.
Robert Jenrick.
Oh yes.
Getting a 6 months driving ban for speeding, but also the Bibi Stockholm, which was the UK plan to put refugees on a boat that they secured for, what was it, 1.6 billion for 3 boats?
For 3 boats, and we only got one of them because the other 2, one was supposed to be moored in Liverpool, and Liverpool told them to sod off, and the other one I think was supposed to be moored somewhere near Edinburgh, and they told them to sod off. Great. So they got one in the southwest of England that agreed to moor it, and then it turned out to be a plague barge.
Yes, the Legionnaire's disease, which exists in water filtration and
which they tested for, but didn't wait for the results.
Oh, fantastic!
Now, I will tell you, as anyone here who's worked in industry will know, if you did something like that, you're getting sacked.
Yeah,
you are getting sacked.
Yeah,
because that is a health and safety red flag and a half.
It's a nightmare. Also, just a day after, the Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick was got this 6-month driving ban for speeding, and literally the next day, that's when the Times did a undercover report and video with Scott Benton, MP for Blackpool South, who basically said, "I will vote the way you tell me to. I will get papers." And he said that he would actually get documents to them for money from the government.
Well, that's the thing as well. When we
why is he not in jail?
Well, because it's not illegal.
Wow.
When we talk about, for example, unsuitable people in the House of Lords, and some people may not see the harm in it, like Evgeny Lebedev, for example, and you think we don't even turn up. So, does it really matter? It's because they get access to documents that we, as members of the public, would not. That's why it matters who we let into the House of Lords, even.
Yeah.
Because they're members of Parliament, they have access to a lot of documents that are not for general publication.
Well, we also had that month the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner to investigate Rishi Sunak. Did anything come of that?
Yeah, he was. This was the one about not declaring his conflict of interest over the budget. Yeah, he was found guilty.
His wife's childcare company was this one.
Yeah, because the budget had been announced, which materially benefited his wife's company, one of his wife's companies. She's got interest in many companies, of course, which is fine. But he failed to declare it. And he insisted he had, just not to the public.
Yeah.
And he was found guilty. He said, "Well, this isn't right. You can't do this. You naughty boy, don't do it again." So, something came of it. He was told that he had actually breached standards, but, not anything that requires a punishment. And he's done it again.
Yeah.
But, he's simply not declaring any of his interests. He tried to argue because it was his wife's business. No, the ministerial code clearly states of your partners as well. Partners or spouses. And she is both.
They also had a Conservative councillor that was suspended over racist comments on slavery, and then the next day was actually expelled from the party. There was a lot of stuff going on with the SNP, but it was all a bit, I don't know, boring. I don't know, compared with what the Tories are doing. What the SNP were getting up to just seemed like
Well, with the SNP,
small fish.
they had an interesting selection of leadership candidates, one of whom has now left the party.
Right.
And but yeah, it was very much, it would have made a major change of potential direction for the SNP depending on who they elected. But it was very likely to be Humza Yousaf, because not only did he represent a continuation,
Yeah.
but he was probably more in tune with most SNP members and voters anyway.
Yeah.
So,
okay, and just a few days later, the bullying inquiry into Dominic Raab found that he was actually a bully. He didn't resign for another 2 days, and he was found to have acted in an intimidating manner, and his resignation letter was just psychopathic. It was literally like all the things that he's been accused of.
Yeah, he is. I think he is quite an unpleasant character, really. It's sometimes very unpleasant. I think it's sometimes you sort of, because he's so thick, that you sort of just assume that he's like picking on someone with like special needs, but he is actually proper nasty. He is really nasty.
He's a horrible piece of work.
Yeah.
So Oliver Dowden became the new deputy PM. Oliver Dowden always looks to me like he's on work experience. Today I'm going to play at being a member of Parliament. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, whenever, because Rishi Sunak at that time was doing a lot of like dodging PMQs, and so like it wasn't even a contest with him and Rayner. No. It was so awful, so abject.
Yeah.
God help Rishi Sunak if he thinks it's a good idea to dodge a TV debate in the campaign and put Oliver Dowden in place.
Yeah. A couple more things that happened in April. Andrew Bridgen was actually expelled, but also Diane Abbott was suspended from Labour after...
She did a racism in The Guardian, yes.
Yeah, for downplaying racism is the official line on that. And also BBC chairman Richard Sharp resigned. I mean, his resignation's all over the shop. And yeah, it's kind of like very telling, isn't it? That the government just have lost control of everything. Obviously, Diane Abbott's nothing to do with the government, but
I'm doing quite well with this, by the way. But I still don't think Brexit's a good idea. But I must have to have the whole pint.
Are you still going to be? You still going to be able to talk at the end of this?
I've got cake and cheese. I'm fine.
Okay, good. It is Twixmas, as they say. But yeah, the other big thing that came out in April, which I think is interesting to us as pro-EU types, is that this ridiculous bill where they were going to get rid of all laws that had anything to do with the EU, and it transpired that this would mean getting rid of over 4,000 laws.
And they weren't entirely sure which ones they were.
Yes.
And they're still not.
No.
There's still several hundred gone, and they're still not quite sure what it means. It's not like, just because they've reined it back, it's not a victory. I mean, they accidentally removed the right for women to demand equal pay for doing the same work as men. They've put it back really quickly because it was a mistake. But it shows that they've gone through meticulously, doesn't it? If they've accidentally removed the right to equal pay for women, half the population, even half of their voters. So goodness knows what else is there. But the problem is they don't ultimately know, because it's because they haven't stated laws that are going. They've just said, ones that meet these conditions. Then it might be subjective as to whether they met those conditions or not. So what's going to happen now is you're going to have businesses going, well, we're not really sure what employment law is now.
Yeah.
So there might be some people who try and change things, and then it has to be tested in court.
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous. If you want to repeal a law, if you don't think a law is fit anymore, repeal it the normal way, go through Parliament.
No, but they don't. I mean, that's like hard.
Not like Parliament are rushed with anything. They're leaving at 2:30 in the afternoon. They've got no pissing work to do.
There are a lot of lazy people in Parliament.
Oh yes.
We just can't be asked, Phil. I mean,
well, some of them actually, it's because they want to knock on the doors in their local constituency, because you'll never believe it. They think they might lose their seat at the next election.
Do you think?
Yeah, I think they're a
Have
little
you
bit
got some
worried.
inside information that we don't know
Might
about,
do.
Phil?
Might do.
So we got well done, Phil.
I'll tell you
Equal
what I
pay.
do know
Sorry,
in
go
the
on.
new year is that Reform UK are going to make an announcement in the early days of the new year, like a big announcement. So people are now thinking, oh, it's Nigel Farage who's going to make his big entry into the Reform UK arena.
Are they not just going to team up with the Tories? Is that going to be the big announcement?
No.
Are you sure?
Fairly sure. Ben Habib has said he only agreed to join them on condition that there would be no deals with the Tories.
Yeah, but they said there'd be no deals last time.
Yeah, they did.
When they were the Brexit party, and then they did a deal.
Yeah, they did.
Where they
That's
only
right.
ran MPs in.
But then
candidates,
you could
sorry,
argue
in,
this time it makes no
Labour
sense.
constituencies.
Yeah, it makes no sense this time for them to do a deal with the Tories because they're going to lose anyway. I'm just not sure they can actually field that many candidates without, because you mentioned before, didn't you, the Conservative councillor that did a racism and it was so bad he had to be binned by the party.
Yeah.
Well, Reform UK have hardly selected any candidates. I don't think they've got the infrastructure to vet them. They're going to get some proper loonies. And anyone who finds out how much of a loony they are is going to sit on it until it's too late. They'll wait for the actual election campaign, wait for the deadline to pass for candidates, and then all the skeletons will come out.
Yeah, indeed. Absolutely indeed. So just to jump into the chat for a moment, because we've got a bit of time. We're a bit ahead of schedule, Phil.
I've not been drinking enough.
You didn't think we were going to make this. I told you, I run a tight ship.
We started halfway through January.
I run a tight ship. No, we didn't. We started at the beginning of January with the 5 pledges. Puddinator says, I had Andrew Bridgen sent a Christmas card. Can't wait for Bonify. Oh, he had Andrew Bridgen send him a Christmas card. Jesus
nice.
Christ. Must be in his constituency. Aid Thompson is in the chat. All right, Aid. How you doing, mate? I hope you had a good Christmas. And Nick and Diff is telling us about the other half is addicted to jigsaws. That's how well our chat is going. Everyone in the chat at the side.
My partner should be starting jigsaws again in the new year. She did start jigsaws a couple of years ago. Then she decided to do a course. Now she's finished it. Every time she had an exam, I'm going to fail it. And then I would order a cake, go and told you wouldn't fail. And she never failed it. So she's passed the last one now. So that's done. So now she's going to do jigsaws in the new year.
Excellent.
I'd already bought her loads of them when I thought she was into jigsaws. So she's got loads to do.
Well, let's press on then, because the next month, May, has a local election.
May is an extremely good month.
Okay, let's go into May. Let's do this, May. Not Theresa. Obs. There we go. So into May, when we had the local elections, when the Tories got absolutely battered by Labour and other parties, and they lost over 1,000 seats.
They lost. They tried to manage expectations by saying, "Oh, we're going to get a right hammer, we're going to lose like 800," and then it was like 1,100, and it's like, oh shit, because they tried to make out they were going to lose more than they did, and they lost even more than they expected. And then they tried that nonsense. The Tory press, the Daily Mail were at it. Oh, this actually indicates a hung parliament. They're not bothering to say that anymore.
No.
The Express are still having a go. The Express wrote a really weird, deranged article today. They're still going, it only has, we only have to slash the polling lead by like 2/3 and then Labour into hung parliament territory again. Oh, it's really simple, really, isn't it, when you think about it? But there's not too many now suggesting we're into hung parliament territory. We haven't been for 2 years. I thought we would be. Like, I'll be honest. You know, after 2019, I thought at best, hung parliament. I couldn't see where the seats were coming from. Couldn't see it, have to admit. But now it's like, not only are Labour going to win a majority, it's going to be a big one.
You think they're going to get absolutely battered?
I don't think they're going to get battered as much as the polling suggests now. I think we do have to recognise that, although I think because Opinion is the only pollster that tries to account for this, but I think they're over-egging it. There are a lot of because don't knows don't feature. If you're doing a poll and you're really a Conservative voter and you wouldn't vote for anyone else, everyone else, and you just can't bring yourself to say you're going to vote Conservative.
Yeah.
A lot of those, come the day, are going to hold their nose and go out and vote Conservative. We just don't know how many. I don't think it's as many as opinion was saying. But even if you go by the opinion polling, the Tories are on for a proper hammering.
Oh no.
But I do think, they are going to run an incredibly expensive and dirty campaign. The Tories have no shame. At the last election, which they were going to win that all day long, and they were still dirty as hell. It was the dirtiest election campaign I've ever known.
Yeah.
And yet the next one is going to be way, way worse.
But what have they got? I mean, the thing is, like, at this point, they have tried everything. They've tried to stop the boat. They've tried, the casual.
What they've got
tried
is
cutting taxes and
they've fake information. It's the Cambridge Analytica stuff all over again. They will target people. They're talking about changing the law to allow political parties to target people personally without their specific consent, which is required at the moment. You cannot get Conservative Party emails or texts or anything like that targeted to you unless you've signed up to them. That's going to change. They're going to change the law so that they can just bombard you. They're going to go the full works. They get access to personal information. They'll target people based on they'll build up profiles, just like Cambridge Analytica in 2016. And then there's we'll talk about this in our common WhatsApp group as well. There's going to be a lot of motivation to vote tactically. The Tories are going to be out there with lots of tactical. So if you Google who is the tactical vote in my constituency, you are probably going to get the Tory one leading you the wrong way. Which is why I am going to be urging my viewers not to Google tactical voting recommendations. I will tell people who you can trust. And I will say, if you're not sure, go with the bookies odds.
You're gonna fall out with Josh on this one.
I don't think I am. He's full of why?
Well, because he's set up stop the Tories.vote.
Yeah, that's fine. That's a reliable one. Although they will not be offering advice themselves, they'll be just pointing you towards credible ones. What I'm saying is, what people should not do is, who is the tactical vote in Surrey East or whatever? I don't even know if Surrey East exists, but in that constituency, don't do that, because the Tories will pay for their searches to be the top ranked ones. So don't Google it. You have to know. It. Yes. You have to know who are the people you can trust.
Stop the Tories.vote. I'll put my money on them.
But they're not actually going to give the recommendations at the election, but they are going to move people to people who will. But I would say, if you don't know at all, just the bookies odds. Whoever's got the shortest odds that's not the Conservative candidate. Right. They don't lose. They know what they're doing. The bookies haven't been wrong on a single by-election.
What are the bookies saying about the election in America next year?
I don't know. I don't really look at that.
Because I am
I can try and have a look.
I have a mild terror of what's going to happen next year.
I have a huge, massive fucking terror. Even though I still believe that Biden will win. My worry is because of the incumbent, all those people who turned out to vote Trump out. But I think that what Trump is promising to do is so awful. I'm sort of hoping the same people realize they do have to do it again. I know it's less likely. I know you're shaking your head. I know it's less likely people do that. He's making no secret of the fact that he's going to use his next presidency as a form of. He's even used the word retribution. It's revenge.
He posted the word cloud with revenge and dictatorship written in big letters for what people thought his next term would be like, and he posted it himself on Truth Social on Boxing Day. But yeah, it's Don is saying in the chat, remember how the Tories pretended to be a fact check?
Yes, I do. During a TV debate, they turned the actual official Conservative Party Twitter and made it like Fact Check UK or something it was, and made it look like an independent fact checking site.
You're saying that they're going to pay for all the SEO to get them at the top?
They won't have one. They'll have loads. They'll all be different.
And it'll say
they'll flood the place, and it'll send them down the wrong path. It'll say Lib Dem when it's Labour and Labour when it's Lib Dem and whatever. That is 100% what they're going to do.
Wow.
the latest election odds have Joe Biden most likely to win.
Okay.
But I will just point out that
He
at
might
the
die.
moment, everyone knows Joe Biden's the Democrat candidate. No one's absolutely certain, even though we sort of are, who will be the Republican candidate. So it'll be interesting to see what those odds are.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, there's the uncertainty about who is even the Republican nominee.
I know, but he's got to be the nominee, isn't he?
Unless he's legally prevented from being so, yes.
Yeah. Which I don't think that.
Because another one's gone now, hasn't it? Somewhere else.
Yeah.
There was Colorado and there was somewhere else. Maine was it?
Yeah. I've said now, not having it.
Another one that's a Democrat,
Yeah, elected Democrat, though.
But they did apparently, Trump did get one elector from Maine, didn't he?
Yeah, because I think they split their electors or something bizarre like that. But I mean, it's a quite a democratic state, or as in they vote for the Democrats.
Yeah, I don't think Florida are going to do this. This is what we're probably saying.
Yeah, true. But it's going to be it's going to come down to the Supreme Court, and people are saying, "Oh, this is not the right place to decide. This shouldn't be decided in the courts. It should be decided in the polling booths." And I'm like, we had that in 2020, and Trump didn't accept it, and he mounted an insurrection because he didn't accept it.
Also, what if someone said, "Oh, you can't charge me with murder. It shouldn't be decided in the courts. We should put it to a poll of people."
We have a wild Josh has entered the chat. I'm just going to add myself. Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good. Sorry to interrupt.
No. You can interrupt away, my friend. We're just going to change the image. Can you see us?
Yeah, I can see both. Yeah.
What month are we on? I'm on half a pint of wine. So
no, I'm right there with you, Phil.
Good.
I think we were on May.
We're on the wine. We're on May, and we were just talking about tactical voting. And Phil has said, and it was a bit of a shock to me, but then he's explained why. He said that you shouldn't Google who to vote for because the Tories are going to pay for SEO, tactically, because the Tories are going to pay for loads of sites to SEO the crap out of Google, so it gives you disinformation. So I would like to have a quick discussion about this because obviously you've got the Stop the Tories site, and how are we going to stop people from just Googling it?
Yeah, well, very convenient that I joined right now, eh?
Yes.
So
this is Josh from StopTheTories.vote and also the Movement Forward. So thanks for coming on, Josh Russell.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me again. So I've said for quite a long time that the biggest threat to the Tories really is the voters, because there are more people that don't vote Tory than there are that do, and that's basically always been the case going back as far as you like. And the challenge has always been the vote splitting, basically, right? And that's kind of what the Tories rely on. And tactical voting is a way of distributing the vote across people in such a way that the vote isn't split anymore, and it isn't necessarily that the true majority is represented properly, because we need proportional representation to do that. But it does mean that a minority government doesn't happen every time, because our votes are split across the opposition. So it's kind of like halfway there. But yeah, I mean, so being the biggest threat there is, of course, the Tories are going to come after it, right? As soon as they realise that, it's actually got legs. And my mission, for the last couple of years now, having been involved in tactical voting since 2017, is to take tactical voting mainstream, to make it a mainstream idea, to give people this really powerful tool, their vote, and just like how to use it efficiently, essentially. And so, I think with the support of people like Carol Vorderman, absolute
She's
hero.
Great. She's been doing Lord's work this week with yesterday with Johnny Mercer, which is quite fun.
She's relentless. Yeah, amazing. And like, I was going to say, like, with the support of people like of Carol, that mission of going mainstream, I think we're ahead of ourselves a little bit. And that so I think we're doing pretty well in making it a mainstream idea. And I know that there is a bit of a Twitter bubble, but the local elections, which obviously happened in May 2023, was a bit of an experiment for us, and to essentially announce ourselves and see how far we could get it out there. And it, I think, showed that there's a real appetite for this, right? And tactical voting obviously is a tool against something rather than for something. But there is an appetite against a particular thing right now, and that is the current government. And so people are motivated, and we just handed them something that would help them, right? And so yeah, now we're looking like we're going to be successful with taking it mainstream. Of course, they're going to try anything they can to slow us down, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things is like trusted sources. Secondarily to that is, can you actually trust the information as well? And then is the information consistent across the different trusted sources? And those are definitely the challenges. And I would say the main thing is that obviously, you should be able to just Google for it and find information, right? You should. That's the goal. I don't necessarily want to force everyone to come to our website. There are 2 or 3 others that are going to be really good too, that have got a historic, very successful track
That
record.
are all right, I guess.
Yeah, they're okay. But the point is actually that there's also going to be, lots of ads and memes and social media content also suggesting who to vote for. And those things alone, I would say, don't trust, even if it looks like it's coming from one of us. If there isn't a website that is actually endorsed and being shared by people that you trust, then don't just take the first thing you see at face value,
So
for sure.
just before you came on, Phil was just saying this is going to be the dirtiest election possibly ever. I was going to say in our lifetime, but it might just be the dirtiest election ever.
Depends how
That's
old we
what
are,
it
doesn't
is.
it? Yeah. I mean, I think, they're desperate, right? And there is, it's a horrible analogy, but it's like a cornered animal, isn't it? Right.
Yeah.
And they're going to fight as hard as they can. Yeah.
They're going to fight like hell.
Yeah. And we have to too. That's the game, right? Ultimately, we want our votes to really count, and we wouldn't have to play this game. But yeah, it is going to be dirty. And of course, they can spend a lot more money now as well. The recent bill increased the amount of money they can spend from about 19.5 million to about 35 million if you're a political party.
Yes,
We
that's
can't spend
interesting,
anywhere
isn't
near
it?
that. Yeah.
But that's the Tories, isn't it? Basically making it.
Yeah,
so
they've justified the increased spend. What they haven't justified is not bringing everyone's spend up with inflation.
Right.
So do you mean like the spend of other parties?
No, third party groups.
Third parties. Yeah. So if you're a political party, in theory,
Yeah.
distributed nationally and locally, so there's a kind of combo of the way you add it up. So it depends if you're campaigning in every country and in every constituency, you can spend 35 million pounds now, roughly. Third parties like us during the election period, which by the way, we are now absolutely in, because the election period is 365 days back from when the election will have to be. And so we're within that time now, essentially. We could only spend roughly 450,000 pounds. And I think that's up to about 600,000 pounds now. So it's a similar increase in terms of ratio, but in terms of meaningful output, it's obviously a drop in the ocean. So we have to rely heavily on community effort and maximizing small amounts of money to try and reach as many people as we can. Think about it as in this way, right? We're doing it bottom up with the voters, right? They're doing it top down with the newspapers and the TV channels, essentially, right?
Middle
That's effectively where we are. Yeah.
Mine is going out this Christmas.
What's that?
Yeah, and of course, I don't know if you've seen, but there are already political broadcasts going on GB News, aren't there? So they're well ahead of the game.
I thought that GB News was a political broadcast.
I mean, for me, it just went when Ofcom did nothing or could do nothing about the Chancellor of the Exchequer being interviewed about the budget before it was given by Tory MPs on GB News. I mean, at that point, you just think, what the fuck?
I'd just like to say a big welcome to Aid Thompson, who has entered the chat. How you doing, Aid? You all right, mate?
What?
How was your Christmas? Did you have a good one?
Oh, it was fucking terrible. No, it was it's really disappointing. No, it was okay. It was good. It was like, so we did a thing this year when, like, normally we go to obviously our like parents or like in-laws and so on, and it's all really stressful with the kids, but they kind of act up because they just want to play with their toys that they've opened here, and then we drag them away to the relatives for like a day or two. So this year I like put my foot down. I was like, no, let's just let the kids play with their toys here, and it will just be the four of us. And it felt like really refreshing and everything. But then because we didn't have any extra help with any of the grandparents, it got really stressful really quick. And then by Boxing Day I was like, oh God, let's never do this again.
Well, we're currently halfway through May. We've just been talking about the local elections, and then we've been talking about the elections next year with Josh, and obviously what we're going to do. Because Phil made a really good point that we shouldn't be looking on Google for who to vote for tactically, because the Tories are going to buy a load of websites and pay for a lot of search engine optimization in order to make it so that a lot of information is going to be out there. Which, to be fair to the Tories, is what I did when the March for Change, the March to Leave happened down from Sunderland to London. I set up a mirror site with almost the same URL, but with the number 2 rather than the word 2, and gave the wrong dates and the wrong locations for people hoping to join the journey along the way. So
you got to fight fire with fire, right? So
exactly.
Remember, was it 2019 or was it another moment when the Tory party changed their Twitter account to Fact Check UK?
Yeah, that was a TV debate in the 2019 general election. Yeah,
right.
Cheeky feckers.
Yeah.
So what else happened in May last year? We had obviously the local elections, and also we had Andrew Bridgen joined Reclaim, the ex-Tory MP.
And he's left now. Yeah,
he's left now. Yeah. Also, Kemi Badenoch was reprimanded for a government announcement leak because she's as leaky Sue. And talking of leaky Sue, Suella. Sunak on the 24th of May this year, but Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said he confirmed no breach of the ministerial code for Suella Braverman for, do you remember this? Asking if she could do the driver test thing that you have to do, thing called speed awareness. That's it. Yeah. Asking if she could have a private speed awareness course because it would be embarrassing if anyone else was there. Apparently, that's not
would be Home Secretary.
Yeah, and also it was found that 26,165 people were turned away from the local elections because they didn't have ID.
Yeah,
government.
Many didn't know they need it because I mean, the thing is, they'll say, "Oh, it was written on the voting cards we sent to every house." No bugger reads those. If you've been voted for years, it's just, oh, that's the card. You've read it once in your life where it says you don't need to bring this with you, and that's it. So you don't read that.
Yeah.
The interesting thing, of course, is that Rees-Mogg then admitted at that NatCon conference or whatever it was called, that they clearly tried to rig the election, not necessarily his words, but essentially that was what he was trying to say. And it backfired, which I think is the word he used. Now, interestingly, right, like you say, a lot of people who would have traditionally not had to read it because they've been voting for a long time, their demographic, didn't have what was needed, and a lot of people were turned away. But I think the bigger reason that it backfired was that it became a big story. Right, and it is now something that more people know about, ironically, for the general election. So really, they should have waited and not done it at that local election to catch people out this time, and I think that would have worked better for them.
Yeah, it's sort of become a Streisand effect, hasn't it, in that sense?
Well, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, there was a report by the Electoral Commission that actually did suggest that Rees-Mogg was talking shit in that it didn't backfire on the Tories at all. It actually did generally exclude people who don't vote Conservative. He was just trying to claim that, that's why we lost so many seats. It's actually, no, mate, you should have lost even more.
I could imagine that it would backfire on them, because if you are, let's say you're a traditional Tory voter and you're like 72 years old, you've always voted Conservative, they bring in this new requirement, but it wouldn't get amped up in the newspapers that those individuals read. Like the Express and the Mail aren't going to be talking about, oh, well, this is going to disenfranchise certain voters because they don't know about blah, blah, blah. So I could totally see like 10,000 or 20,000 people going down to the voting booth and going, what's this? Like, I've never heard about this. Whereas you and I, like people who read other newspapers or are exposed to other media outlets, would have known about it. So I thought
was the number?
the Electoral Commission found that it disproportionately affected groups like, for example, people with disabilities and so on, who wouldn't necessarily have another form of photo ID or an accepted form of photo ID. Because the other thing is the Conservatives also, although, you know, they are these days trying to appeal quite strongly to, you know, poorer voters or voters who might not have reason to have like a driving license or anything like that. They are also appealing mostly to elderly voters. And it's like, if you're a young person, you need like one of these like 3 types of ID. If you're an old person, basically the chewing gum in your bag will do as ID.
Yeah.
So they heavily stacked it towards the sort of voters who might not realise, but would probably have something anyway.
Wasn't it like really clearly illustrated and mocked and lampooned how contrasted the two were, in that if you are a pensioner with like a pensioner's Oyster card,
yes,
that is accepted.
Yeah.
But if you're a young person with a regular Oyster card, that is not accepted.
Or a young person, whatever. Yeah.
Except,
ironically, in Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, where they can do their own thing, there was a larger list of things for young people. It's not in England.
The interesting thing, of course, and this is the case, you know, again, going back as many elections as you like, whatever they try and do, right? Remember, and I know I've said this before, but they own most of the media. They literally can decide when the election is. They can put out policies, you know, roughly in time to affect how people vote. You know, they've got the billionaires on their side, you know, the House of Lords. What else have they got? They've got so much on their side, and yet they still aren't able to win a majority, right?
Yeah.
No, they win a majority of the seats, but they win a majority. They've never won a majority of the vote, right? And so in the local elections, with this extra barrier, this extra thing again, right? I think they reduced the number of polling stations as well, but I might need a citation on that. But again, with all of that, they still lost over 1,000 councillors, right? You know, I mean, so whatever they try, they know that actually the country is not with.
Oh, that's the thing. If we were looking at quite a tight election, I'd be very, very worried. But we're not.
Yeah, because we need about 15% ahead, right, to actually guarantee, well, not guarantee, but like to be in a good position.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, yeah.
Which
is, I mean, it will tighten up. The polls definitely will tighten up towards the election. People's ideas will consolidate between the two major options.
I don't know. You know, I've lifelong Tory voters, and they've said we'll never vote in Tory again. Some of them because they were anti-Brexit. Some of them because they were for Brexit. I mean, in
the by-elections, that's exactly
pissed everyone off.
In the by-elections that we've had. Yeah, I mean, it was basically, you know, the turnouts for by-elections are not necessarily, comparable to a general election anyway.
Not at all.
But similar numbers turned up for the Labour Party, the Lib Dems, the Greens, and the Tory voters basically stayed home, right? And like the graphs you've seen are like, you know, they crashed. You know, it's about 20% turnout for the Conservative voters. So I think that's right. I mean, that's generally what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, the thing as well, what I would say, what is still to be unleashed is the fact that Rishi Sunak, like the way I look at it is, if you look at the last 2 rounds of by-elections, he was not out and about or even tweeting on polling day for both of them. And that is not right. The last time he was out of the country, the time before he wasn't even out of the country, it was just radio silence from him. They know he's not an asset, but he is going to have to lead their campaign in the general election. People keep saying, oh, well, Boris Johnson dodged like these debates and stuff like that. Yeah, he was ahead. He was playing a defensive game. He was like basically South Africa in the 1995 Rugby World Cup. They got ahead and then they just right, park the bus. They can't do that because they're going to be behind. So every TV debate he dodges is a missed opportunity, but every TV debate he turns up to is a kick in his own knackers. That is the problem they're going to be faced with. Isaac Levidow,
oh, what a shame.
He may be a professional strategist, but what's he got to work with? What has he got? Rishi Sunak's terrible.
The tools.
You look at the rest of the cabinet. I would say the only member of the cabinet that's got any sort of ability is Grant Shapps. He actually comes across all right to a lot of non-political people. That's it. Who else have they got? James Cleverly. I mean, did you see him at the local election? He's
I would have said like a few months ago. I would have said
a joke about date rape.
Bad strategist. always blames his own tools.
I
The
would have
tools
said a
being the
few months
Tory
ago,
party.
like Penny Mordaunt would have been a good look for them. But since the coronation thing, that was a bit crazy. And then since the conference thing, where she's like, stand up and fight.
She's useless.
I'm like, that is not a centered individual.
No,
That's
she's just as demented as the rest of them. She's
Have
just
you all
slightly
noticed,
less demented. I'm going to have to press on because we need to move on to June. But first, I'd like to say thank you to John Hart for the £5 super chat, and we can discuss this in the next segment. But with the rise of the far right in Europe, is the UK ahead of the curve or behind it, considering what we've been through since 2016? Well, so while we mull over that, I'll put up the title card for June. Here we go, June.
very
June,
professional,
flashing on
Greg.
the screen. Thank you very much.
We're still waiting for the spelling mistake.
There isn't any spelling mistakes. Phil's obsessed with the spelling mistakes. So
You're
in
true.
June, we got rid of Boris Johnson. Bye-bye, twat.
Woo!
As my flag said at Glastonbury. So basically, this was when Boris Johnson was given a 90-day suspension by the Privileges Committee, which was voted on by the Commons.
I wish he was. He wasn't, though. They said it would have been.
Yes,
but
but
because
he
he's left
resigned.
anyway, we'll just ban him from Parliament for life, which is a bit of a bugger because if they did try and sneak him back in a by-election, if they had have voted on the suspension, it would take effect. It would be like, well done, you won the by-election, piss off for 3 months. Or 4, I mean, that'd be 90 working days, presumably. Be a lot, be a long time.
Yeah. I doubt if he would have won if he had the chance. But
Oh, no, I don't think he will. Like, there's people talking about,
We'll come on
he
to the
should
by-election
stand
in a
in
bit.
Wellingborough. He should stand in Wellingborough. He would lose, mate. He would lose hard.
But it's the fact that Labour didn't win in Uxbridge is more to do with ULEZ. But we'll come on to that when that comes up in the year. But yeah, Boris Johnson seems to dodge a bullet there because he broke the law. He broke the law again and again and again, and he's still now appearing on. Is he on the GB News now? And he's got a column with the Mail newspaper and. He's doing all these talks and getting millions of dollars for these talks that he gives.
It's quite brave, the GB News thing. I'll be interested to see what the viewing figures. I actually think he might carry it, but we will see.
I don't see him as a presenter at all.
I know what you mean, but he just has that ability to just sit in front of a camera and talk absolute bollocks for as long as he needed.
Oh, sorry, you were talking about Boris Johnson.
Right now, of course, Johnson is able to, if he wants to, basically be out there, trying to shape the narrative, trying to get people's attention, earning lots of money without really having to be tested by the public very much. Whereas, of course, in office and, going for any kind of elected position, that's an opportunity to fall on your face, basically, isn't it? And so, right now, he probably realizes that actually he's in a better position outside of government, and the moment isn't right for him anymore. Meanwhile, you got people like Patel who's really going for it.
I always wondered why he even wanted to be prime minister. Anyway, like to me, a sort of narcissist, a psychology like his would be way more comfortable, like hosting a Friday night current affairs show. It's a bit silly. He gets to ruffle his hair up. He can crack a few gaffs or gags. Sorry.
Crack
went to Eton. The only thing they teach you in Eton, don't even have a good academic record. The only thing it teaches you is that you should be the leader of whichever field you choose to enter.
Yeah.
Also in June, which sometimes gets forgotten because of what happened with Boris Johnson, the Parliamentary Standards Committee found Matt Hancock guilty as well. And also Margaret Ferrier was suspended. And Ian Blackford announced that he was going to step down, as did Caroline Lucas. There was a lot of big names that were culled in June this year. And Boris Johnson obviously being the big beast of
When
them all.
did Sturgeon step down? That was June as well, wasn't it?
No, it was earlier.
No, it was a little bit earlier. We already covered that. You weren't here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I joined late.
Thanks. I'm getting handed a beer. Yes. What is it? Beavertown Bones. There you go. Do you approve? Do you approve, Aid?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love a bit of Beavertown.
He loves his Beavertown.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, it was, and also what came out in June was a lot more Partygate revelations. Just the sheer scale of what happened during the tumultuous days of COVID, when we had a bunch of teenagers in charge of number 10 Downing Street who just wanted to have house parties every other night rather than actually, do the homework or run the country through a pandemic, which was killing literally hundreds of thousands of people in the end, which is just absolutely disgraceful. And one of the things I want to go back to what was said in the super chat just a moment ago about, do you think that we've been ahead of the curve or do you think we've been behind the curve? This is from John Hart. I think we're slightly ahead of the curve because we've had that far right. We've had them in government and they've got their way and they're useless. They're just shit at doing things.
I think people just read too much into stuff like this. I think countries just lurch from one end to the other. They just rubber band quite a lot in different countries. And it's just, I think it's not entirely random because there is a lot of more international coordination now, particularly from the far right. But I just think you go one way and then you end up going the other because it never works out to people's satisfaction.
I think also
in Argentina, where they're going to swing between complete lunacy and merited junta. So that's the next step for Argentina after this lunatic with the chainsaw.
This is the thing. I think it happens in different ways, doesn't it? Obviously Brexit was our big thing, and part of the whole Brexit narrative was like, we are ahead of the curve. Every other European country is going to want to leave as well once they see, how well it's going. And of course, that hasn't happened because it's not going
worse.
well.
Like pro-Brexit parties in the EU are now going, oh no, we're not really pro-Brexit. That'd be mad. We're not that. We're just normal racists now.
Yeah, Meloni, wasn't that one of her things? And then she decided it wouldn't do more. And
same with the National Front in France. Like, no, of course we're not going to leave. Are you crazy?
Ruin the economy. That would be the end of it, wouldn't it? Whereas our lot are like, ruin the economy. Well, as long as I get paid a bit, on the back side of it.
Smash it. Well, we were talking at the beginning of the show just because we were talking about the 5 pledges that Rishi Sunak made at the beginning of the year. Just the state of the British economy at the moment, and it's what Labour should be leading on if they're going to run an election campaign against the Tories. Just every time the Tories bring up the cultural bullshit, trying to control the narrative like they always do, Labour needs to shut it down and say, shut up, stop talking bollocks. No one cares about this. What people care about is the fact that you have made them poorer. You've made pretty much everyone in this country poorer, one way or another, except for your little mates. Except for your little school friends.
It's the economy stupid, right? I mean, that's what I've always said. And of course, that reminds me of the epic takedown of Marina and Rees-Mogg on his show, right? Because that's exactly what he was trying to do. He was basically trying to put it all back to culture wars. It's literally what he started with. And then she was like, no, that's not what people care about. People care about how much the pound in their pocket can buy them in the shops, which is exactly right. I completely agree. That should be the leading thing. And the economy, of course, I think, needs to be refought in such a way that actually it does affect people's lives in the way that we measure it. Because we're the 6th largest country, economy in the world. And, we're still up there in that respect. But actually, we've got a huge poverty problem. So even when our economy is doing well, it's not actually doing well for everybody. And so I think that needs to be, that narrative needs to be reshaped as well.
I feel like that story needs to be told in a way that, I don't want to endlessly pour blame on the previous administration because I don't think that really helps anybody. But in terms of contextualizing the problems that the UK faces and why we have such inequality and poverty, it wouldn't do Labour any harm to just say, look, the reason that there's not money to apportion to this or to that, and the reason that these public services are underfunded is because the Tories have been in power for 13 years. They've overspent, overborrowed. They say they're the party of fiscal responsibility. Look at the state of the exchequer. Like, here is the exchequer. Here's a really clear pie chart of what they've left us. And this is what we're going to, because they're inevitably going to have to make some tough decisions. They're going to have to say, look, we don't want to cut the funding to this hospital or that school, but unfortunately these are the cards that we're like, if they don't grab a hold of that narrative, from the beginning of the GE, they're toast, because somebody's just going to go, look, they're all the same, they're cutting just like we would.
I mean, they'll do that anyway. One thing they have done, and people criticize them for, is, where's the grand vision? It's Labour have got a specific strategy of no vision. We're actually going to underhype ourselves, and they're taking full advantage of the fact that everything is so shit that people will literally vote for Larry the Cat over the Tories now.
Yeah.
And, you know, Wes Streeting has the phrase under promising and over delivering. So that they can we're just basically going to promise you the same old shit, but more competent, right? And then when they do better than that, it's like, because what they need to do, and this is why it's quite smart having the employment bill first thing, because that should lead to much better pay. That empowers workers to demand better of their employers without lots of extra public spending. So that legislation going out early should reap dividends. And Labour need to ask them every year, are you better off than you were last year? And the answer has to be yes. And they have to keep doing it, not wait till the next election. Keep doing it every year. Do you feel better off? Do you feel better off? And the answer must be yes. And if it is yes, they win.
I saw an excellent quote, and I can't remember who it's from. And it's probably someone famous.
Probably me.
And it basically said the cost of everything has gone up except our labour.
That wasn't me. I'm not taking
it was a very good one. The cost of everything's
yeah.
gone up except our labour. It's just such a simple way of putting it all, right? And you're absolutely right. If that doesn't go up as well,
I did a TikTok which was way less eloquent than that, where it's like the cost of the energy goes up, and then that goes down to the guy's warehouse, and then the guy in the warehouse goes, well, you know, I'm sorry, the cost of the energy's gone up, and then he goes off to his logistics people, and they're like, well, the cost of the warehouse and the energy went up, so now we got to put our prices up. And then the driver guy's like, oh, well, I guess I'm gonna have to put my price. And then it works its way all the way down to the guy right down the bottom, and he goes up to his boss and goes, well, the cost of the energy in the warehouse and logistics, everything's gone up, so can I have a pay rise? And the manager's like, fuck off.
Yeah. So also in June, the Me and Aid headlined at Glastonbury. Really, and I had a massive flag that said F the Tories. And I had a bloke come up to me. He weaved his way through the crowd. You know how hard it is to get through the crowd at Glastonbury? Came all the way across the crowd and he tapped me on the shoulder. He said, I want to complain about your flag. I said, what's the problem? And he said, it's not big enough. Which I quite liked. Right, should we press on into July?
Yep.
Oh, would this be the TV debates where all the Tories argued about how badly the Tories had knackered the country?
It might well be. Yeah, there was obviously the leadership election for what am I talking about? The Tories sort of knackering themselves. But Chris Pincher was finally recommended for suspension in July this year. The Cabinet Office found the Cabinet Office. Is this Simon Case's Cabinet Office? They found that Sue Gray broke the rules, but no one else did, which was bizarre. And the Met Police reopened an investigation into Partygate, which nothing's come of that.
Yeah, it just fizzled out.
Have they just given up, or?
Oh, cool. I mean, their own officers were like witnesses to it all going on at the time.
Wow. Mary Black said she was going to stand down, which is a shame because I think she's a really good speaker in Parliament. And there was Ofcom. So we had at the same time that the police were saying, yeah, we're going to definitely investigate Partygate. Ofcom were investigating whether Rees-Mogg can actually host a show on GB News in which she interviews other Tory MPs.
Supposed to be me slurring.
But I mean, this goes to the heart of where, I mean, we talk about this a lot on this channel about Labour's comms, and like Labour has the opportunity to make content of its own on YouTube, anytime, any day, and it looks like they could do pretty much anything and get around any Ofcom ruling because they can just point at what GB News does, what Talk TV does.
YouTube isn't subject to the normal rules for broadcast media.
Even better. So the fact that they're not using it to,
well, this was the idea with GB News was at the height of the hysteria over Dan Wootton and the idea of Tory ministers interviewing other Tory ministers. There was this idea that they might move some of their more, should we say, hysterical shows to YouTube only format, because the idea was, look, a lot of people just consume their news on the internet anyway. Plus, if we do that, we can say whatever we like, and we're way outside of Ofcom's reach, so there won't be any problems. I don't know if they've ever truly progressed that, or if they've just decided to dial it down because of the advertiser boycott. But
or the fact that Paul Marshall wants to nick the Telegraph.
Oh,
But
They
then
got
how would
Barkley brother.
his desire to get that, how would that affect GB News' programming?
Because
Paul Marshall is the
he-
father of the banjo player from Mumford and I was going to say
I can't
Plymouth and
actually
Sons.
mention Paul Marshall without this fact coming out.
It's true. He plays. His
One
son plays
day
the
it's going to
banjo
be in a
posh
pub
band.
quiz, and then we're all going to profit.
In a
Well,
yeah.
you mean like put the
Because
crazy
he
stuff
has
into
to be
the
vetted. You
Telegraph?
can't just rock up and buy the Telegraph because it's for sale. You
Right.
have to be
Oh, I
vetted.
see. Right. Yeah. So if you
he has
appear
to, he
to
has
be,
to, yeah, he has to demonstrate that he's a responsible, is a responsible person in
Yeah.
charge of our nation's news.
did you know? I put this in a tweet thread earlier.
Apparently, we disconnected, but we've reconnected now. So
Oh, okay.
you might have to play that. But also, Ollie Bowler Hatman has entered the chat. This is gonna make a big problem for the screen because we're gonna mess around with the screen now.
Oh, he can replace me. I've got to head off.
Are you heading off? Okay,
Yeah.
mate. Oh, there he is. Okay, so if you head off, thanks
Hey,
very
Ollie.
much. Thanks, Josh.
Bye, Josh.
Legend.
Later.
Laters, mashed potatoes. There we go. Perfect. Oh, that worked out well, didn't it?
Mm.
So that's to rearrange
One
the
out,
screen.
one in. That's it.
One in,
hey,
one out.
Ollie, how you doing, mate?
I'm doing all right.
How's
I
Yorkshire?
join you in my new wizard robe.
Yeah, you look glorious.
Is that an
Oh,
Uddy?
this honestly, this has been such a good Christmas gift
Is it an Uddy?
already.
Is it an Uddy?
Yeah, it's just
I've
so
got,
good.
do you know what? I was going to show off my new Pokemon t-shirt, but it's got colours on that as the same as my green screen, so it go hollow inside, so I'm not going to show anymore.
I always do that. I always forget to check my t-shirts.
Yeah,
and I'm
no
like,
greens.
oh, I've got a
no
massive
greens.
hole in the middle of it.
So it's hole in my chest. Anyway, we were just talking about July and what happened in July this year. And one of the big things that happened in July was that Nigel Farage lost his bank account.
Oh yes, I've been following this saga.
And he started an account. He started a website called accountclosed.org
That's right.
for all those millionaires who can no longer bank with Coots because of reasons like they don't have enough money in their accounts.
Yeah.
This was actually
Something.
one of the things that Farage brought up, actually, that banks are not giving enough people time to change their accounts. So the only good thing to come out of this was that banks changed from 30 days now to 90 days. So, and there was a good guy about, I think, one of the debt charities. I can't remember what his name was now, so I have to forgive me if he's watching or anything like that. But one of these guys actually wrote a blog in response to this and says, Farage is making all this noise about this, but the only good thing he is mentioning is that when people do lose their accounts, 30 days for some people is just not enough to be able to change their accounts. So if there was anything actually good to come from this, it was that.
Yeah, just it's kind of just a bit embarrassing, really, for everyone involved. He lost interest in it once he got his account back.
yeah.
He just lost interest almost
And
immediately.
and to follow up on this, the Independent Review dropped just a few weeks ago,
Yes.
and they found, the bank was entirely within its rights to lose Farage because
private
he was
enterprise.
losing them money.
Yes.
Wow.
The only thing that they basically did wrong is, and they can understand it, but rules are rules, is that Rose did appear to leak some information to the press that she probably shouldn't have done about it.
Yeah.
Even though it was in to defend the bank's reputation against what Farage was saying in public.
I'm not too bothered because she's still got I'm so upset about that because she's still got.
Oh yeah, I mean,
massive golden
her reputation for competence hasn't been dented, so I'm sure she'll find another job, and she got a huge payout.
It's like 18 million or something ridiculous. But also in July, Kemi Badenoch signed a treaty joining us with the CPTPP.
Well, we haven't joined yet.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we're
which is
going
to
through the accession phase now.
grow the economy by 0.08% over 10 years.
It's been revised down since then.
Oh, kidding me!
No. The latest from the OBR says, it was worth zero. It's worth a much smaller zero now.
My God,
And what is it, 30 years or something?
That's
We
the
get
margin,
no benefit for
margin
we're
of
not
error.
even doing it.
That's just the margin.
And
of
I don't know
error,
if you heard, we lost the Canadian rollover deal we had when we left the EU.
Yeah,
That's now ended,
yeah.
Oh, really?
and
Or will have done at the
Canada
end of this month.
might veto us in this, in joining this, because they want us to lower our farming standards.
Yes, yeah. They want to sell us, like everyone else in the world, they want to sell us the low quality beef that most countries are not mad enough to accept, or most rich countries are not mad enough to accept.
Wow, that is just.
This is why Australian newscasters, I can't remember if it was Australia or New Zealand, they're both
It was
pissing themselves.
Australia. They were
Australian
just laughing.
newscasters pissed themselves laughing when they were reporting on the UK-Australia trade deal.
Yeah, because it was so
They thought
appalling.
they could not believe it was
For
so
us.
one-sided.
A deal
And-
so
and-
good it was written on the back of bog roll.
Lee Corn is saying 240% tariffs on imported cheeses into Canada from the 1st of January.
I mean, the thing is, like, you know, we import millions of pounds worth of cheese to to Canada. Way more to the EU. I mean, if you had to prioritize the market, you prioritize the EU.
Yeah.
It's like something like 20 million to Canada and like 750 million to Europe. So,
But what you're forgetting, Phil, is that I mean, this all sounds really good. Like, you know, mathematically, pragmatically, sounds like it makes sense. But what you're forgetting is F business, right? You know, it's not about business; it's about sovereignty and identity.
what I'm finding, and
flags.
I'm nearly at the bottom of my pint of wine, and I still don't think Brexit's a good idea. That's what I'm finding.
But nearly. Give it the whole pint.
Well,
I'm sure it will
okay.
come. You'll think clearly.
I'm not far off now.
Yeah.
Did you
Oh
see
my
one of the
God.
UK's major wine producers respond to that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
no such thing as a
Yeah,
pint of
it's redundant,
wine.
basically,
Yeah.
and no one actually wants to make or produce
Well, of course
a,
not.
a pint bottle.
Yeah. I said on Twitter as soon as it broke, I was like, look, here's how this is going to shake out. The industry will lead this and they will follow the consumers. They will go like, right, okay, the consumers are used to buying bottles of wine. They'll just continue to buy bottles of wine, not pints. So the industry will go, well, why would we produce pints of wine when nobody
Yeah,
nobody
this
wants
is what
them?
I was
And
saying
that'll be the
about-
end of it. Like everyone will just go, do you want a pint of wine? And they'll like consumers will look at a pint and like go bemused about like, no, why would I? And then game over. Like in three,
It's not
6
classy
months.
to buy a pint of wine.
I mean, this is Australian wine because, you know, to be a proper Brexiteer, you can't drink like French wine. And this is 75 centilitres. And I actually said in my video on it, I had the inkling that United States, their standard, because you have different sized bottles anyway, but their standard was like, I thought 70 centilitres. And then an American viewer said, no, we've got 75 centilitres here, quite common. So it's almost like it's all over the pissing world.
Going
You can
back
understand, maybe, I don't know about Asia, but then there's a lot of people in Asia are alcohol intolerant, so they don't necessarily have a lot of wine anyway.
Oh no, they drink sake, which is that's got a kick to it.
Just going back,
I'll not have
just-
a pint of that then.
You're gonna hate me for this, but just to go back to Farage for a minute. You know that in the same month that he lost his Coots account, that I think was it Monza Bank had a deal with
Oh yeah.
Gina Miller's Fair
Yes.
and True Party. I'm getting
That's
the
it,
names
yeah.
wrong here. But basically they told her that they didn't want political parties to have a bank account with her.
Yeah.
I don't think she started a website called closedaccount.org and
Yeah.
made a big
No.
fuss about it. She just went, okay, and opened an account with another bank, like a
Yeah.
normal person. Like a normal person.
Exactly.
But yeah, I understand the urge when you are you get bad
a
service.
narcissistic gobshite.
Yeah, when you're a narcissistic gobshite and you get bad service and you think, I'm going to write a nasty review about them on Google. That'll show them. But this is just like getting the public spotlight, getting headlines in newspapers.
Well,
That Farage did over the summer.
It just highlighted how crap at politics the Tories in general are now, because they gave it oxygen and they shouldn't have done. You know, it had extra legs on it because the Tories got involved. And it's like all year, they're identifying, rightly or wrongly, Reform UK as this huge challenge to them in the election. And yet, what are they doing to counter them? They're just appeasing them. They're just trying to be like, being austerity light for Labour didn't work for Miliband, and being Brexit light for Corbyn didn't work for Labour. So why on earth would Sunak think being like Reform UK light attracts Reform UK voters back to them? Some of the most entrenched people in terms of their opinions, because that's who Reform UK attract, people who are deeply entrenched in their views. And they think they're going to win, the Tories are going to win them back by being less crazy than Reform UK. And because they're the party of government, also failing by their own metrics.
Yeah.
Like, they shouldn't be giving Farage. They should be attacking him. They should be saying, "You soft bastard! What are you moaning about? Get another
doesn't it
proper
feel like-
bank account?"
It feels to me like a replica of 2015, or at least a close cousin to it, in the sense that when David Cameron was leading the Conservative Party, he was so scared of seeing 8 or 10 MPs defecting to
UKIP,
UKIP, that he was willing to put the referendum stuff into the manifesto. And then, now we are where we are. And now it feels like we're basically in that neighborhood again, where Reform, a lot of the same faces, same characters, are like, we're going to do this. We think we should leave the ECHR. We think we should slash these workers' rights. And now Sunak is there like going, well, my personal feel is that even though everybody says they're not going to do a deal, they're going to do a deal. And then they'll stand down. And Sunak will lurch further to the right.
The thing is, I don't think so, because the Conservatives are going to lose. And Reform UK, if they stand down again, even in, like, if I were Reform UK, what I would do, I would be willing to do a deal, but not with the Tory party, with certain Conservative candidates that were on their wavelength. I would say we won't stand against Tory MPs who are willing to stand on a platform of this, this, and this.
Don't get
which
them
would
ideas.
also help destroy the Tory party.
Don't get them ideas.
They know this anyway.
Okay.
They're not stupid. They're not. They actually are not stupid. I mean, it must be remembered the Tory party leadership are stupid. Reform UK's know what they're doing.
We're not to November yet. We can't talk about this whole Reform UK.
Should we crack on to
Tory
August?
MPs yet?
Go on then,
Should we
August.
crack on to August? Here we go. August coming up for you, because
it's not that
August. Well, thank you very much for the spelling correction there. Had to change it.
No
quickly
correction.
before-
It was correct to begin with.
Oh, good. So August started with the amazing news that we're going to ditch the whole idea of having our own standards, and we're just going to stay with the EU standards for everything.
Yeah.
And the CE mark is just going to be the standard.
Yeah,
as it is all around the world already.
Yeah,
Everything except construction materials.
so far.
The only
like
UK
rack?
safety
That's
mark
because
is
it's a
safe
different
construction
government
materials.
department.
What you mean, like rack and cladding? That's incredibly flammable.
Possibly.
No, the reason is because it's different government department. So it's a particular government department that form this policy rather than it coming from the top.
Yeah.
Obviously, Sunak approved of it.
Behind the ingenious mind of Michael Gove. Which is kind of funny because you'd have thought he'd have been probably doing the same with what Kimmy Badnock did and backing her on that, considering like she's like his mentor.
Understudy. Yeah.
It's still an odd one to me that Michael Gove got behind Kemi Badnock. I'm still not entirely sure about that one.
It's weird to
it's an
me
odd
that
pairing.
she's made such a leap from being a fairly insignificant, obscure figure to going for the leadership. And just from going for the leadership, because she can string a sentence together and because she's a person of color within the Conservative Party, she is now, within the space of like a year, 13, 14 months, she's now seen as a potential front runner.
If she was on the ballot, she would probably win against most other
It's incredible though, isn't it? To go from to have such little experience of government. And I suppose the point that I'm trying to get to really is that there is a different skill set of being able to sit on a Sunday morning breakfast sofa and string a sentence together and run a government.
I think it's just because she's been promoted.
Yeah, I agree.
It's literally like Rebecca Long Bailey would not have won any votes in a Labour leadership contest if she weren't being backed by the Corbyn clique. And yet loads of people then voted for her. Not enough, because most Labour members at that point thought, "Do you know what, we just want to win power, thank you."
Yeah,
it's the same thing. She's been so heavily promoted. She's talked about in glowing terms in lots of the Tory media. She's talked about in glowing terms on Conservative Home.
But I just don't understand, why? On what basis? Where's the substance?
Because they think she'll be. What they're looking for is someone who will appeal to the public, because they sort of know they need to win power, but is actually crazy enough to go along with their mad ideas. They want
competent
someone.
Boris Johnson.
Well, yeah, like that. They want someone And I don't think they're right. I don't think she will. But then she's so untested, it's hard to disprove it. But they want someone who can appeal, who has that appeal, but will also do the mad stuff.
Well, this is where I think she might,
I'm
going
laughing,
for
but
the
I'm
leadership might prove to be even harder, because she stood down. She backed down. Of course, she gave that infamous quote,
Yeah.
"I'm not going to be an arsonist."
Yes.
And the ERG came out and said, "You will never be Tory leader."
The thing is, though, the ERG now, the leadership of the ERG has twice issued instructions to the ERG membership, and the majority of the ER membership have gone, yeah, we're not doing that. So I'm not entirely sure that the ERG is really a force anymore, if I'm honest.
It's what always like amazed me with the Conservative Party. So here you've got a Conservative Party with a majority of, at that point, 80, and yet this little ERG subset commands such influence. And it used to be, I think there used to be like 45 of them, right? And now there's like 18. But still,
there's loads now. There's still a lot who are members. Oh yeah, they just ignore their own leadership.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's the five families now. You know,
yeah,
if you want more math, yeah.
I could have sworn I read a thing like
they're still the biggest by membership. They're still the biggest.
They've got to pay membership to be part of the ERG, and there was only like 10 or 12 people that paid up membership.
No, they only have to be declared if they get those expenses back.
Right.
If they decide to pay it themselves, they don't. But even with the ones that are known, it's still quite large. The new Conservatives, like the Danny Kruger, Miriam Cates lot, they're a much smaller organisation, but they are,
the new kids on the block.
Yeah, they've got big plans.
New Conservatives on the block.
New
cunts on the block. Anyway, so yeah, going back
but
to...
they're going to be the old Conservatives soon.
Because they've got Lee Anderson and Jonathan Gullis amongst their membership.
Oh yeah, the big guns.
So just to go
they'll
back
be
to...
out. Like, none of them are polling well. They're all red wall people who feel betrayed.
Yeah, Miriam Cates is probably, I think she's going to lose her seat as
well.
well.
They're all going to be, we're the new Conservatives. We're the future. Really? Okay, well, let's see where you are in spring, shall we?
Derek in the chat is saying 5 families, just like the mafia. How could anyone think the Tories are corrupt?
The thing is, they relish it. It's not like someone else came up with this name to point out how like nasty and corrupt they were. They embrace it.
Yeah.
Mark Francois was loving it. Cock of the walk. Oh yeah.
This is
one of the dons, mate. Me.
This always reminds me stuff when I talk to people and they have this sort of respect for gangsters. They have this respect, they watch Goodfellas or Casino and they're like, oh my God, Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels is so cool to be a gangster. And you're like, but these people kill people, and what their actions kill innocent people in turn. They're not good people. People who worship Pablo Escobar. There was a story a few years ago where people were visiting Pablo Escobar's grave and putting flowers down and stuff. And the Colombian government were like, can you stop doing this? This guy murdered. He blew up a freaking plane. He blew up an entire plane with children on board. And it's like, stop idolizing him.
You have the same thing with the craze in London.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It always reminds me of that Monty Python sketch, which is a piss take at the craze. And it was all these people talking about the deadly Piranha brothers, Dinsdale Piranha. Anyone still with me on this?
Dinsdale.
And it's got and it's got all these it's got all these little interviews where it's got these people going, oh yeah, he used to come around and nail me head to the table. I wouldn't say a word against him. He's a lovely man. One time I said, mother-in-law's coming round, don't nail me head to the table. So he just took me around the block on the back of his car for a drag. He was that kind of guy. And he's like, that kind of reverence for violent, vile, inhumane people. And it's what drives the vote for people like Trump and the lunatic in Argentina at the moment, Maduro in Venezuela, who's just had a referendum to literally invade their neighbor.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, it's easy to mock this sort of stuff. But do you know what? I reckon if somebody like Mark Francois or Lee Anderson or Suella Braverman went out on record and they said, who thinks we should reinvade the colonies? I think you'd be surprised at the answer.
I wouldn't. I talked to some of these people.
Express readers.
Disappointed. I'm not surprised. I'm just disappointed.
Mail readers. GB News
Well, the
phone
Mail
in
were literally
people.
calling us for us to invade France
Yeah, oh yeah.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Do you remember when the Gibraltar stuff, like there was talk about like fishermen, there was a big standoff there.
Yeah.
People were like, oh, well,
And
maybe,
of course,
maybe
we
we should
learned
send
from the
some warships down there.
Of course, from
Like,
the COVID inquiry, Boris Johnson wanted to do a commando raid on the
Oh
Netherlands.
yeah, the Netherlands.
Yeah.
He wants to invade the pissing Netherlands.
these people are honestly like they live in 1930s, 1940s nostalgia. Like when Richard Madeley was on GMB last week, and we were talking about
Is he still on the telly? Do
Yeah.
people still
Yeah.
allow him on the
So
television?
there's a story.
Yeah.
There's a story about like geopolitics, about fossil fuels, about energy supply, and there's this. I can't remember the name of it now. Somebody in the chat will remind me. There's the Strait of something and the Strait of something else. Routes
Gibraltar,
out, to,
Malacca.
like Suez or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going into the Red Sea.
And so you have this route out to ship oil out of the Middle East, one on the east and one on the west. And anyway, BP and Shell and so on are like, look, it's too dangerous. We can't send big freight ships through there. It's like the insurance is insane. There's no guarantee. Like we wouldn't put our staff through that kind of stuff. Anyway, Richard Madeley is reporting on this, and he's just like, I don't understand why. This is, I mean, we used to do blah blah blah. Like we used to have warships and he's really channeling some
people
old
died.
like Brexit, blighty,
Yeah.
water. Like we used to run the world.
Alan Partridge.
Yeah,
See,
and
none
it's
of
like,
these people even know
Accidental
this.
Partridge.
People like this weren't even aware of the Suez Crisis. If Richard Madeley was even old enough to have lived through it, he would have been a babe in arms, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, probably.
well, there's a big thing about this in psychology.
And we
where they
lost.
say-
Yes.
The Suez Crisis. We lost. They did
At
renationalise
the end
the
of
Suez
the
Canal,
British
and we could do fuck all about it. And the Americans didn't back us up.
No,
It's one of the reasons that we didn't go into Vietnam, because we were still butthurt over the fact that they wouldn't help us out
that was-
when we had our daft foreign military.
Well, we should have carried that policy on. If the
Yeah.
Americans are going to do this
Well, we
daft
should have
bloody
done.
thing, do you know what? You
just-
do it on your own, mate.
I'm just going to shout out to George for the super chat. Super chats are open, so thank you very much for that. It's astounding, isn't it, how people don't understand respect? Absolutely. And just to go back to what you were saying then, Aid, about the environment, because I just wanted to point out that this year, Rishi Sunak, his company, Emphasis, not his company, sorry, his father-in-law's company, of which he owns a mere £700 million worth of shares in, did a
it's
huge
chicken feed. Chicken
what-
feed, Gray.
$1.5 billion deal with BP to provide them with
And
information
that
technology
was round
services.
about the same time. Which one came first? Hold on. So he then, after that deal, within a few weeks, he announced like 100 extra licenses for North
Yes.
Sea
Yeah.
exploitation.
Funny that.
Coincidence.
Yeah,
of
but
course.
don't like
Coincidence.
why are we changing it up? These are two completely separate things, guys. Like he signed off some
Well-
licenses for drilling, but also he has shares. Like why are you? I don't understand why you're muddying the waters here, guys.
On the 2nd of August this year, some Greenpeace protesters went to one of Rishi Sunak's homes
Mm.
and covered it in black fabric and put no more oil on
Yeah.
it as a rebellion against these oil deals that have been made for opening up the Rosebank oil field in the North Sea, and also giving out over 100 new licenses to drill for oil in the middle of a climate crisis. And I can't stress to you how big the climate crisis has been. I mean, this year alone, it's the hottest year on record. We've had fires, out of control, wildfires in Canada, Chile, Greece, Hawaii. In Hawaii,
Yeah.
we've had storms, had hurricanes, had floods in Hong Kong. We've had orcas attacking people's boats. It doesn't tell you everything you need to know about what's happening in the world right now. Literally, the orcas are getting together and going, see these humans? Yeah, they need to go.
Yeah.
Simple as
We're
that.
basically at this
But the
point
problem-
we're a cancer on the globe that the globe
globe's
is
fine.
desperately trying to.
All
the
right,
globe-
Mr. Anderson from The Matrix.
They don't. The globe's fine. The world's fine. It's just we're killing ourselves. That's all.
And all animals, though. We're killing a lot of flora and fauna. Not just animals.
I've killed quite a lot for my Christmas, though. To be fair.
Yeah,
So-
come on. No, I mean like extinction, not things
yeah,
that are bred to be.
But what I'm
killed.
saying is the world will be fine and life will flourish after we've knackered it. We should be concerned about ourselves.
Mm.
What we're destroying is, and there should be more emphasis on that rather than the world, because people don't care about the world. It's like, okay, but you're killing yourself. They might care about themselves a little bit. And
I don't think
you
they
know,
do, though. Well, they certainly don't care about their children or their
the
grandchildren.
problem is that
these
what
people.
happens is then the media, whenever something like this happens, the media goes, "Oh, we used to have weather before. You know, they're just making a fuss. I mean, this is just weather," and they're allowed to get away with it.
Yeah, yeah. Even though they go, "Oh well, this is the worst thing that's happened for X many years." Say, well, it happened X many years ago. I think, yeah, but it's happening all at once now. We're up to Storm G, or we're up to Storm Get It, which is Scouse for. Can you just grab that thing for me?
Yeah.
Which is just had a tornado in Manchester in
That actually ripped a
Stalybridge.
house up.
Yeah, a tornado in Britain. And everyone was like, yeah, that's fine. This is following up hot on the heels of literal
a wicked witch being
wildfires
found under
in
the
the
woods.
UK in the summer of last year. So it's all been a bit mad. But it's time, I think, my friends, to move on to the next month, which is known as September, which is a bit odd because it's the 9th month, not the 7th. Here we go. September.
I remember that
Sweet.
September.
So September was
25th of September.
dominated by RAC. Not the RAC where they used to stretch people on, but RAAC, which stands for, I think Ollie's going to know this. Is it reinforced aerated something aerobic
Something
concrete?
aerated concrete, I think.
Yeah.
Something aerated
first aid is
concrete,
something
yeah.
else.
Basically, it's concrete with bubbles in it, and it's only meant to be a temporary solution. And this stuff has been up for years, and it's in schools across the land. And
But look, you've got to understand, Graham, we've got to really thank the education secretary at that time. Like,
oh
we've
god,
just got to really
she was
thank
doing so much
her, I
work.
tell you.
She was just doing so much work. Do you know what I mean? Everyone else just standing around doing nothing. It's very easy to criticize when you're not that person doing their job.
I mean, basically, Gillian Keegan, what she's done as education secretary, she's watched a load of schools fall down and Ofsted kill a head teacher. That's basically her legacy.
Wow. That's pretty grim, isn't it?
And a new report has basically said, yeah, Ofsted basically killed that head teacher. So that is her legacy. And you would sort of think, okay, we've had so many education secretaries in such a short period of time. She's just taken over this mess. So what has she done to address it? Oh, boggle. I see.
Yeah.
At which point you take responsibility. I can understand education secretary has come in. She can't wave a magic wand and change everything overnight. But at the point at which this stuff happens and you decide to do nothing at all to address it, you are taking responsibility.
Yeah.
Wasn't there some scandal though with her, like her interview on the steps inside Downing Street, where she said, didn't she sound like quite flippant about something? That was so like the scandal of the rack was one thing, and then it was her interview that sort of bubbled it up. It became,
Oh yeah, she didn't help herself.
Yeah, this was a hot mic incident, wasn't it? From what I remember, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, she was like, just once it would be nice if everybody said, yeah, thank you, yeah, good job.
Good effing job. Good effing
Good fucking job. Yeah.
Like there's some father.
She's killed a head teacher when it's really hard to get people to do that job because it's absolutely fucking nuts these days. I mean, it was always a stressful job, I'm sure. But when you're now being told, by the way, you don't have a budget for staff or heating or even buildings, good luck with that. So it's really hard to get people to do the job. And now Ofsted have basically become a hit squad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good job. Good job.
And worth noting at this juncture that if you are a private school, it's up to you whether you want to be inspected by Ofsted or not.
Yeah.
You don't have to be. Also, you don't have to pay tax or follow the national curriculum. Fair.
I'm gonna have to go in a minute. I've just realised what the time is. Yeah, man.
Oh my god, we're only up to September, mate.
I've done, and Brexit's still shit.
Oh no, Phil! But the wonderful news is, Phil, you still have another 100 and something milliliters of booze.
Yeah, but this is the EU waste. We discussed this before. As soon as the pint bottles come in, I will have actually finished the bottle.
Oh well, thank you so much to Aid for being awesome and joining in. Listen, mate, if I don't see you before, have a fantastic New Year and all the best for 2024.
Yeah, man.
May all your dreams come true.
Have a great New Year, guys, and everyone
Same
in the
to
chat.
you.
See you later.
See you later.
Adios,
Have a baby
amigo.
cage for your children. An activity baby cage. Don't get a cheap one.
Right. Okay. Cool. Awesome. So we're going to move on to the next topic now, which is well, we've just been talking about rack and the rack and ruin that the Tories have pulled us into. But there was some good news in September this year, which was that the UK took its first step back to the loving arms of the European Union as we rejoined the Horizon Scientific Project, which is fantastic news for scientists in the UK and across Europe and across the world, really, which was good because we left for no good reason. You don't have to be a member.
And we've still
of the
lost out
EU.
on a load of research.
Yes,
A lot of
for no
permanent
reason
damage was done.
other than ideology, which
Yeah.
is one of the reasons why I don't like ideology. I'd rather not have it. This was also around the same time that Sunak, after being attacked by Greenpeace and declaring that the government will no longer deal with Greenpeace anymore, and he sent out a memo to all government departments saying if Greenpeace get in touch, you've got to ghost them. Ghost those bastards. He also announced that he was going to have a rethink about our net zero strategy, and one of the big things was that one of the things was that we'd left the EU, and because the EU had a date of 2035 for getting rid of all new cars being not electric. So by 2035 in the EU, all new cars sold in the EU have to be electric. But because we had Brexited, we could do it in 2030. So we said, we're going to do it in 2030. Yeah, Brexit benefit. And then Rishi Sunak said, no, we're going to just go in line with the EU and make it 2035 instead. Indeed. Great stuff. Yay. Sunak's net zero strategy rethink. And also
7 bins.
Yes, 7 bins. So old 7 bin Sunak. So Sunak made up a load of bollocks at the Tory party conference where he said that the Labour were forcing people to have 7 bins, which wasn't true. But I think it wasn't the Labour Party conference. That was the very beginning of October, I think. So
yes,
we're going to have to wait that till we get to next month to talk about that. But Jeremy Hunt in September this year said that tax cuts were virtually impossible. He's changed his tune on that, hasn't he?
Well, I mean, the thing is, like Resolution Foundation again saying today, so with the national insurance cuts, which are coming in a few days, that will cost £10 billion. But with the income tax rises that they've been very quiet about, that will bring in an extra over 40 billion. So really, it's not a tax cut, it's an increase in income taxes of over 30 billion quid. They just wish to, it's just that they're bringing in the tax cut part in January, so you'll see it in your February pay packet, and they're leaving the tax rises until April, so you won't see it until your May pay packet, which means if they have the election on May the 2nd, you won't see it at all.
Brilliant. Hurrah! Hurrah for the Tories. Aren't they wonderful people? They're so nice. They really look after us. We've got Wayne has entered the chat, although we just see his name at the moment. If he actually susses out how to join the chat, that would be great. Come on, Wayne. Come on, we're waiting for you. I don't know
Is he
if
awake?
Was it this month the Tory Party conference as well, or was that next month?
No, it's next month. That was
next
the
month,
very
right.
beginning of next month. So we're going to stick with what happened in September. Also, Suella Braverman criticised the 1951 Refugee Convention because, of course, she did.
Oh no, she's not. She's just criticised it. She went to the UN and asked them, "Can you do my job, please?" And then she got laughed at on the world stage.
Yeah.
Like.
And Ofcom said, the Ofcom CEO said that no rules prevented the GB News interview, the infamous interview where a Tory MP interviewed a couple of Tory MPs about the upcoming budget, wasn't it? Yeah, but that was fine. That was absolutely fine and well within the rules for some reason. And finally we got Iceland CEO Richard Walker. Another bit of good news. He left the Tory party. Maybe because it wasn't right-wing enough. Just to jump forward to something that happened was announced yesterday. You know that Tim Martin is in line for becoming a knight.
Oh yeah, he's going to get a knighthood.
Oh.
That's hilarious. There's so many people, Brexiteers, go, oh, this is going to upset the left wing. I'm just thinking, it's just going to give me more opportunities to remind everyone that Tim Martin's had to shut pubs down because Brexit knackered his business, and how he keeps complaining that he can't get EU staff now.
Was this the same Tim Martin who sacked all of his staff at the beginning?
We tried to, and then a week later he had to relent.
Yeah, and told them all to get into
Go to Tesco.
To go to Tesco.
To piss off to
Great
Tesco.
stuff. GHK, thank you very much for the super chat. Sunak wishes his approval was net zero. I like that. Politics Live, thank you very much for the super chat as well. What would the 12 days of Tory Christmas be? Ovs is 7 brand new bins. For the fact that he just made up this nonsense. In fact, didn't he make up the thing about the bins before the conference? Wasn't that a few days before?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, the bins was during the whole net zero announcement.
It's based on the idea that there are 7 categories for recycling. Well, like 6, I think, and then just general waste. But it's like some of them are in the same bin. Like you put plastic and cardboard in one bin, and you put like other things in like a single tub. So what we have is 3 bins and 2 tubs.
Oh, mate, but that's still not 7 bins.
No.
Yeah.
Because 2 of them have like 2 different things in each one.
Right. Well, we have been pushing towards October quite a lot so far. So let's go into. Should we do October? Because then we can talk about the Tory Party conference. October.
I've run out of wine. Oh, that's spelled right as well. You might actually get through this.
I might actually get through it. So in October, it was famously the Tory Party conference, and it was just as bad as anyone thought it might be. It was
way
worse. Disaster.
The thing is,
dominated by HS2.
Dominated by the backheeling of the northern leg of HS2 from Birmingham to Manchester, and also by Penny Mordaunt going nuts and saying that you have to stand up and fight 15 times, and also Rishi Sunak being introduced by his wife, his multi-millionaire wife, who stood up on stage and said he's a really nice guy. Actually, you just got to learn to know him or something.
It started off though,
painful.
Like on the first day when there were like cabinet ministers giving speeches to an empty hall, and they were corralling people in the audience into one corner so they could take a photo of just that corner. And then you went, well, there was a rail strike, you see. So that's probably why. And then the next day it was still empty when there was no rail strike. And it was only the really big names that got any sort of thing. But the thing is, before you got to the likes of Suella Braverman and Rishi Sunak, is always going to get sold out, you had Liz Truss packing out one of the fringe conference halls with Nigel Farage in attendance as a member of the media. And that was what was attracting all the attention. So you had cabinet ministers, people deciding policy at cabinet level, getting no one in the audience. And you had this fringe event with some batshit crazy person who pretended to be prime minister for a few weeks and is now the shortest serving prime minister ever, packing out. Like they were queuing up the stairs, to get in and listen to this lunatic.
Of course, Nigel Farage dancing with Priti Patel.
Oh yeah. I burned that from my memory. Thanks for that coming back.
Yeah, burned into mine.
So the big things from the conference was the backhealing of HS2 at the cost of billions to the taxpayer in wasted
and knackering councils, because there's lots of people that were reliant upon that money that was like it was part of budgets for years to come.
Yeah. Gone. He proposed a cigarette age increase, which in line with what they've done in New Zealand, although they've repealed it in New Zealand because the right wingers got in. And he unveiled a new education qualification called an X level or something, an X wing or something. I can't remember. But yeah, it was all a bit. But then the next day after his big speech, Michael Shanks won the Glen and Hamilton West by-election, which was brilliant, and gave that was the seat in Scotland that was vacated by Margaret Ferrier, who famously got on the train with COVID, knowing she had COVID. She didn't have like 19 freaking house parties in her house during the whole COVID period, and she wasn't the prime minister. There you go.
Mm.
But yes, and that gave Labour a spring in their step for the Labour Party conference, which was quite fun, except for this crazy protester who managed to get on stage.
Even that they turned to their advantage.
They did. Glitter with Starmer, I think the line was that came out. But Sparkle with Starmer. There were T-shirts out before the day was out. You could buy them on the Labour Party website. But I don't think that protester really helped the movement for bringing in voter reform and proportional representation in any way, shape, or form.
Basically, lazy protest is never actually going to help your cause. You have to convince people. You do want stunts to draw attention, but you have to have some message there behind it that's going to be appealing, and there wasn't.
Yeah. And Politics Clive wants to know what happened to T-levels.
We do have them. They exist.
Yeah, they're still
they're a thing now.
What Sahari didn't tell us is the T stood for tax evasion.
No, they're not teaching ordinary people how to do that.
Oh no, just the posh ones. Yeah, and Katrina says, but it was Police Scotland who prosecuted, not the Met Police.
That's right.
Even though
for the SMP.
She committed the offence in both countries.
Oh, I see what you mean. Ferrier. I thought we were going back to another earlier one. Yeah.
Did we? I might have missed this. Did we mention Operation Branchforth kicking off?
No.
Yes, we did.
Yes.
Did we?
But not by
that's going to be big news next year because all that kicks off, and it's
what is it?
pretty much the entire Scottish political class might have been involved.
So what is it? What is the Branchforth? Is that the investigation into these the SNP?
Yeah.
And what's the problem? I mean, what I don't know much about this. Sorry, I'm a bit ignorant.
So yeah, this is into their investigation into their finances and why basically there's a load of money missing, and why Nicola Sturgeon's mother and father just happened to have the SNP battle bus that was bought specifically for that purpose and that they now own as a camper van. A couple of interesting questions that need to be answered in and around
but
that area.
I was saying to Phil, like, compared with what the Tories have done, this is like really small fry, isn't it?
It is, but it's still, again, you don't place the bar where the Tories are.
Yeah.
Like, there are people...
I'm not saying that we should, but I'm saying that the Tories should all be in jail.
Well,
yes, they should.
I think this is why it's got no attention as it normally would, because you look at everything the Tories have done, it's been like infinitely far worse, and yet that's still bad.
And there are people that are sort of SNP loyalists, as you would, are going, but ultimately this was the SNP's money. It's not like public money or anything like that. But at the same time, it's like, do you want a head of government that fiddles any expenses or moves any, like, has any money resting in their account?
Father Ted.
Her husband just also happens to be the treasurer as well.
Yeah.
And they've never talked about this whatsoever.
Was it? I thought the treasurer was someone else.
No, the treasurer was her husband.
I thought her husband was the chair. Right, I'm forgetting details now.
No, yes. Right. Yeah, so that would have been like if Carrie Johnson had been the Conservative Party treasurer.
She may well have been at some point. They have so many.
Yeah.
Mind you, to be Conservative Party treasurer, you have to give them £3 million. So.
Yeah.
And then you get a seat in the House of Lords. So, you know.
This is Lidl's finest port. Get in. I've moved on to the port part of Christmas.
I've finished my... Like, do you know what? Like, I got my partner to get this yesterday, and she didn't really know why. And then when I told her today, she went, "You fucking what? You're going to drink a pint of fucking wine just to make a stupid point on the internet."
That's what we do. That's what
sometimes
we do,
it's worth making a stupid point.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, just about
Wayne's
going
fell
back.
asleep again, hasn't he?
Wayne, yeah, probably.
He's gone to sleep.
But yeah, Peter Bone was suspended in October this year. But also, obviously, things kicked off in the Middle East in quite a dramatic and horrifying way, with an attack on Israelis on October the 7th by Hamas, and then that led to the invasion of Gaza, which we've seen over the last couple of months, which has been absolutely horrific. And also what's been horrific is the international community's lack of being able to do anything about it.
This could have been solved decades ago if the international community had any sort of will to deal with problems like this.
Yeah. And it's why there's an argument against invading countries that are misbehaving or problematic in whatever way, but also I think there's an even bigger case in ignoring them and just letting these problems fester.
You can
and not
solve
get involved.
any problem you like with economic sanctions if the international community is behind it. No country can survive as a pariah state. North Korea only gets by with patronage from China.
Yeah.
So if the international community had really wasn't willing to tolerate it, in economics, you don't need to invade a country. Economic sanctions will actually bring any country to heel immediately, because the population will not. Imagine what happens if there's an actual proper shut off in all trade with a country. The population won't stomach it for 2 days.
Yeah.
But there isn't, because people ultimately really don't care.
And like I say, ultimately, because America is the big
ultimately,
backer,
yes,
as China
America,
is to North Korea.
Yeah.
And
indeed.
but you are now seeing that change, though. You are now seeing a lot of that public opinion sway. So that's at least, achieved something.
You've literally had, and I cannot believe this. I mean, we all know what Netanyahu is, but we actually had an Israeli minister say, do you know what? There's no such thing as an innocent Palestinian. That anyone in Palestine, anyone in Gaza is a viable target. And at that point, you just go, what's you on?
Yeah.
To actually say that, we sort of knew they treated the situation like that. But to actually come out and say it is quite something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they know now. Well, the Israeli government know that they're kind of untouchable. There's nothing really the international community can do about it.
Or he's willing to do about it.
Or is willing to do about it. No, but also what can they do? I mean, the UN can't even pass a.
No, the UN is a talking
resolution.
shop. We cannot. We don't expect the UN to do anything. Individual countries can unilaterally apply economic sanctions.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, the ones who will have the major effect are the ones with
the biggest economies.
Israel, or the ones that Israel is most dependent upon, and ultimately that is the United States. But the ones that Israel is dependent, you don't have to invade. You don't have to do anything equally unpleasant. You don't have to fight, batshit crazy with more batshit crazy. You can simply say, we are not going to trade with you.
Yeah.
That is an option, but for it to work, it's no good like out of Mongolia doing it. It needs to be the ones that Israel relies upon, which is America.
Yeah, but America's in the. I mean, Hamas targeted they chose this date quite.
Oh yeah, they knew what they were doing.
There was because they knew in America they're going into elections. They know that the Republican Party hold sway, and they're fighting amongst themselves. I mean, they saw, like we all did, the Republicans.
Well, they were told, in all likelihood, Putin is very likely to be behind this ultimately.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What he has learned from Trump, his little pocket president.
Something we should probably mention as well: the Wagner mutiny, because we missed that.
Yeah, we've been concentrating on UK news, but obviously. Well, what I was thinking, Ollie, is at the end of this, we'll just go do a little segment on sort of what's been happening in the world, and we'll mention Barbenheimer and Wagner and the Wagner mutiny and the plane going down and everything. But we're just trying to sort of concentrate a little bit more on UK politics at the moment. Because that's what Labour Social's kind of its main thing is about. But obviously we do our show at the Geoscope on Tuesdays, which is well worth watching, where we do talk about international politics and what's going on in the world.
How a so-called military leader who knows that you never ever, if you fall out of favour with Putin, stand by a 5th floor window, agreed to stand by a window 10,000 feet in the air.
Although we know who did it now, apparently. It was surprise. We all know who did it.
Who was it?
It looks like it was Shoigu.
The defense minister, isn't it?
Yeah. He ordered it, but of course, who then gave him the order?
Which is quite remarkable.
You cut out a bit there, but I think you'll be talking about Labour have hired one of Boris Johnson's ex-wives to be the sort of SAR on whistleblowing women in the workplace.
Yeah, workplace harassment. Something that I'd love to see Labour do, and I did a Christmas Day message in which I hope people have watched it, but if you haven't, please do after this. In which I just lay out loads of things that I'd like to see in the UK. One of the things that I didn't mention, because I said, there's loads of other things at the end of it, so I cover my back, because people are obviously going to mention in the chat, you've got this and forgot that. It really pisses me off that whistleblowers in the UK get nothing. In the US, if you whistleblow and there is a class action lawsuit against that company that you have blown the whistle on, and they're sued for millions, you get a cut of that if you are a whistleblower in the States. In the UK, if exactly the same thing happens, you get nothing. All you get is blacklisted from the industry in which you work in for life. So, no one's going to blow the whistle, are they?
Yeah.
No.
So, yeah. Anyway, Peter Bone was suspended over bullying complaints, that's putting it mildly. This is the guy who got his knob out in front of his
member of staff
working for him. One of his members of staff, and some of the stuff that came out was absolutely horrific. He denied it, said it wasn't all that bad when obviously it was. Also worth pointing out that on the day that he was suspended by the Conservative Party, there was a parliamentary party anyway. There was a report into the culture of drinking in Westminster, where there's over a dozen bars in Westminster which are open all night. But I
think this goes to show you how bad the situation might actually be with Peter Bone, because I can't remember, was this the one that was also uncovered in like one of the Conservative clubs that was done there? Or was that someone else?
I think that was someone else.
No, not.
This was the member of his staff in like a hotel room or something.
Yeah. And then we also had the situation where these drinking, the whole drinking culture of Parliament, the fact that their drinks are subsidised by the taxpayer, and they're leading parliamentarians to make terrible decisions. But I was going to mention, we're probably old enough to remember the days when pubs closed at 11 o'clock at night, and you had to go to a club. There was no bars open till 2 a.m. or 4 in the morning. That just didn't happen until Tony Blair's time. And for many, many years, the only place you could get a drink in a pub after 11 o'clock in the UK that wasn't a lock-in was the House of Commons. Because, one rule for them and another for everybody else. But the good news in October was that Labour won the Mid-Bedfordshire and Tamworth by-elections, the seats that were vacated by Chris Pincher in Tamworth and by Nadine Dorries, who took a very long time to resign in Bedfordshire.
Yeah.
Was it 3 months? I think it was.
It was quite a while. I'll go to resign with immediate effect. And then 2 others followed her, including her crush Boris Johnson. And they actually resigned with immediate effect. The other one was Nigel Adams, wasn't it, of Selby?
Yep.
And she was just like, oh yeah, I'm going to resign, but I'm sulking first.
I was writing a book.
I want Rishi Sunak to tell me exactly why I'm not going to be a lady. And
well,
I can tell you why, because you believe Boris Johnson.
This is one of the mad things, isn't it, that we had this year of the Boris Johnson's resignation list, resignation honours list. And one of the people on there was a woman called Charlotte Owens, who nobody knows who she is. It's a complete random. She did 6 months work experience in number 10, and for some reason that qualifies her at the age of 29. She's now 30, but at the age of 29 to be elevated to the House of Lords.
Yeah.
Yep. If you look her up on the House of Lords, her page is completely blank. That's how much experience she's got.
Exactly. She was pictured with him while he was mayor of London, so she's been with him for a bit.
All a bit disturbing. She's either probably his love child or maybe his lover.
Yeah, I don't think either of those, although you can't rule out the second. But it's quite likely. I don't think it'll just be simple flattery. She's probably got something on him, I think, is what my bet would be. But either way, it's a bit ridiculous.
Well, it is a bit mad that Boris Johnson has been banned from parliamentary grounds for life. Is that correct?
Oh yeah.
Yep, because he lost his ex-MP card.
The thing is, that's why they should have actually gone ahead with the suspension anyway. Because if he did come back as an MP, let's say, obviously then there's no punishment because he'll get it back as an MP.
Yes, but why have if you imagine like, okay, we're going to ban you from coming into Parliament, but we're going to allow you to make a list of other people who like your mates,
Well,
your
but
gang, and they're still allowed to come into Parliament.
I mean, that was down to Rishi Sunak. He could have blocked it. I can understand why you wouldn't. It's just why we shouldn't have political appointments like this. We shouldn't have political appointments to Parliament. There was a time when I went along with this unelected House because it was like a revising chamber, and it allowed you to have ex-parliamentarians and trade union leaders and business leaders and senior judges and people who sort of understood how to read legislation and query it. And I could go along with that. But now they've just completely destroyed the whole concept. It's now just like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just like being able to appoint your own judges, really, of your legislation.
Yeah. Well, in the same month, GB News hired Boris Johnson. He still hasn't appeared on the channel, has he?
No, it's in the new year.
Okay.
It starts in the new year.
And the ICO, the Information Commissioner's Office, found that NatWest did breach Nigel Farage's privacy, which I can't quite believe because he's the person who went to the media in the first place, and they were just defending their own honour, which I thought was fair enough. And also, Kristen Blunt was suspended from the Conservatives on accusations of rape. Oh my God! And then with the fact that the Tories are just the most disgusting cavalcade of shit this country has ever had to put up with. And a big thank you to Zach there for the £2 super chat, saying let's have 10 Lords of Leaping in 2024 and the rest. Leaping because the House of Lords is possibly not suitable for human habitation. And storyteller because tell. Sorry, I can't get. Oh, here you go. So storyteller because teller was taken. 02. Thank you very much for the super chat, Graham. Can we get a New Year's Day book read of the plot with drinking? Just Graham drinking his mimosa sours while reading Dories and hungover on New Year. This is the new book that's coming out by Nadine Dorries called The Plot, all about how some Tory advisors basically took over the party and made it rubbish.
Dr. No.
Yeah, whereas it used to be brilliant up till that very point. We might talk about that in a moment. But should we go on to November?
Yes.
Keep up with the schedule. Keep up with the schedule. November. Remember. The 5th of November. So November was when the Wellingborough recall petition began against Peter Bone, which obviously was concluded this month. But also Carol Vorderman left BBC Wales for being too politically outspoken. And although her show had nothing to do with politics.
Even though it didn't feature in her show. She didn't use her show as an outlet for her political views. Yeah. But there you go.
And then Home Secretary Suella Braverman at the time, she questioned police impartiality. She made some really horrible statements, and it just sounded like Sunak finally had enough. And then suddenly, who comes back into politics but David Cameron as our new
and a riot at the Cenotaph. Don't forget,
minister.
she encouraged that as well.
Yeah, she encouraged a near riot at the Cenotaph in which police officers were injured and taken to hospital because she knew that there was going to be an anti-war demonstration for the events against the events happening at the moment in the Middle East, which is fair enough. And she decided to send the far-right thugs of the National Front, who, if they had their way, Suella Braverman and her family would literally be put to death. I mean, does she not understand this? Does she not understand how fascism works?
She don't care.
Anyway, as a result of that, she was kicked out. And James Cleverly, who was the Foreign Secretary, was moved to Home Secretary. And there was an available option for the Foreign Secretary, and that was filled by David Cameron, whose first order of business was not to have a chat with the media or the cabinet or Parliament, because he can go in to the House of Lords now.
Camerons.
Well, at the time, he was neither a Lord nor an MP. His first order of business was to meet with his counterpart from India. It's almost as though he's only there to get the India-UK trade deal through before the next election, so that Sunak's shares in Infosys will raise in value.
Yeah.
That's no chance of going through.
No, not at all.
No
It was
chance.
also quite a smart move doing it to like take the sting out of sacking Braverman, because there will be Tory. I mean, first of all, it's big news. It's very big news. It took Braverman off the front pages for a full day.
Yes,
and
but to be honest,
also,
no one expected it.
No,
I mean,
not at all.
I think that was the last thing everyone was expecting.
And apparently,
David Cameron's back.
David Cameron nearly dropped a bollock as well, because if you remember, Remembrance Sunday was the weekend before, so he was there as an ex-PM and apparently told Rishi Sunak, "I'll see you tomorrow." And no one twigged. No one sort of thought, "What's that about then?" But it was recalled later on when they found out why he was meeting him the next day. Oh, yeah, he said that on Sunday. So he nearly let the cat out the bag that something was going on. But,
apparently wanted William Hague first, but Hague said no. And then it went to David Cameron.
Well, William Hague has been Foreign Secretary before.
Mm.
And again, we'll have a certain amount of respect within the Conservative Party.
Mm. I mean, I think this also goes back to, maybe we'll have a deeper discussion about this later when we talk about Ukraine a bit more. But I honestly think there might be a path to redemption for Cameron if he can actually sort out getting the weapons, getting people rallied, and really rally support for Ukraine. I think there might actually be a path to redemption.
I will say, to be fair to Grant Shapps, who's the Defence Secretary now, I have to remind you because they keep changing. He's not just got lots of alter egos, he's had lots of cabinet positions, but he has made it clear that the UK is going to like bung a load more weapons to Ukraine after Russia's attacks in the last 24 hours. So to be fair, like the Conservatives are actually, whether they're successful, whether they're competent, they are actually trying to rally support for Ukraine, because the blow up in the Middle East has distracted attention away from it. And Putin is taking full advantage.
Talking of distractions, the New Year's honours list, or the resignation honours list of Liz Truss has just dropped.
Oh, is it?
And it includes Matthew Elliott.
Yeah, we knew that.
One of the founders of the Taxpayers Alliance. He was the chief executive of Vote Leave, the main pro-Brexit campaign during the 2016.
There's going to be a hell of a stink if it's
referendum.
not Nadine Dorries. Is she?
No,
That'd
Ruth
be
Porter
hilarious.
is in there. John Monaghan, who was the former chief executive and chairman of PA Consulting Group, which chaired the Vote Leave campaign, is heading to the Lords. And the Register of MPs' financial interest shows that he donated £50,000 in two separate transactions to Miss Truss's Tory leadership campaign. And Conservative MPs and former ministerial aides, Rob Butler and Suzanne Webb, have been nominated for OBEs. And she also handed out OBEs to Downing Street Special Advisors Sophie Jarvis and Shabir Merali, and her South West Norfolk Constituency Party Chairman David Hills. So there you go. She was in post for 49 days, and now she gets to put people as unelected lawmakers for life in the House of
This
Lords,
is wrong.
because that is our crazy system.
This is wrong. I've just reading something on The Guardian. It says, because obviously Labour have attacked it, then it says a government source said every past Labour Prime Minister has issued a dissolution or resignation list. So first of all, a dissolution list is very, very different. Second of all, Tony Blair did not issue either. He did not, when he resigned, have a resignation honours list.
Did he not?
No.
Oh,
At the time, you've got to remember, there was the old cash for honours scandal, so it would have looked bloody dodgy. Now, this looks bloody dodgy because it was someone who was basically like Mr. Benn. She played Prime Minister for a few days. But
I wonder how big a stink this is going to cause.
And Gordon Brown issued a dissolution honours list, which means it's not just, it's other people's as well, across party, not just his own muckers. So that's actually factually wrong. That's a lie. Every past Labour
sorry,
Prime Minister
is-
has not issued a resignation or
is-
dissolution on his list.
Is the Guardian saying that, or is the Tory MP
The Guardian
saying
is quoting it. The Guardian is quoting a government source, but at the same time, they're not saying, which the media should do, by the way, when Tony Blair resigned, there was no resignation on his list.
that? Yeah.
And because there was a dissolution on his list is when you dissolve Parliament for a general election, obviously he didn't do that in that Parliament.
Yeah.
So, no. Unless he's talking about a previous dissolution of Parliament and he issued an honours list. But a dissolution honours list is very different because that's cross-party. It's very different to a resignation. A resignation honours list is all about rewarding people who you want to reward. Dissolutions honours list is honours that are agreed cross-party.
Wow. That's pretty crazy. Well, there you go. So that they're available. Please go and read that after the show.
You'll
I'll
notice,
put
by the way, this
the link in the
resignation
chat.
honours list has probably dropped at, just after 10:30 at night, meaning that they're trying to get as little media attention as possible. So that the papers have already gone to print for tomorrow, hoping to try and keep this off their time.
And then it's Sunday. Sorry, it's a Sunday press the day after that, which is it's not going to have it in, really, is it? Very much. Oh, and then
The Times might do something, but probably not. It depends.
So back to November this year, back to last month. We also had the autumn statement, the awful statement, but it was overshadowed by James Cleverly calling North Stockton a shithole. Which he apparently didn't say. He just called the MP a shit. But we all know
even though you could hear, it's like so audible.
Shithole.
Like sometimes you'll get an MP and you can sort of read their mouthing of it, and you go, "Look, mate, don't bother denying it." This was audible.
Yeah,
it was audible.
Yeah. And then just because Cleverly covers himself in shame doesn't mean Sunak cannot one up him. And Sunak actually cancelled a meeting with the Greek PM over the fact that the Greek Prime Minister had brought up the Parthenon marbles in an interview a couple of days earlier.
He basically, he reiterated what has been Greek policy for like centuries. Yeah, basically.
Yeah, with quite like those, those treasures of our country back, please.
Yeah.
Although Phil thinks they're just rocks, but Phil is
wrong. They are just rocks.
Phil is wrong.
They should still go back.
Blah, 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 blah.
At the end of the day, they're rocks.
Right. Okay, so we're going to be on
and the
December.
King wore a Greek tie the next day.
That's hilarious.
King Charles III, we're having a Greek tie at COP28, which
with Rishi Sunak.
Yeah.
What do you think about me tie? What do you think he asked him? What do you think about this tie, Rishi, mate? What do you think about it? Does it go well with the ambience?
When King Charles had to open Parliament and he had to make the King's speech, and he was just saying it through gritted teeth, wasn't he?
To be fair, he's been quite canny. Like, for example, remember last year when they wouldn't let him go to COP, and he said, "Right, I'm just going to invite a load of people to the palace and talk about climate change." Then, so it still got in the news, and his views became like very clear. And the government can't say, "Oh, no, it's been political," because it's like, well, no, it's not, because you say you're committed to net zero as well. So it's not political.
Exactly. But him wearing the Greek tie was a stroke of brilliance, along with his mum when she wore an EU-coloured hat for the state opening of Parliament during the Brexit wars, which is a sign that she was on our side, the side of the angels, which is awesome. Right, on to December. There you go. I've done it. I've got it for the whole year without making a spelling mistake. December, the beginning of December was dominated by Rwanda and this government plan idiocy to send a handful of refugees to Rwanda at a massive cost to the taxpayer of at least £290 million so far, rising to nearly 700 million in the next few years if it goes ahead, which it doesn't look like it's going to.
Rishi Sunak has been bounced into doing Reform UK's campaigning for it. He's absolute lunatic. Mm-hmm. They should have dropped this like hot potato as soon as he became leader. It should have been gone. It obviously unworkable. It was clearly unworkable. They knew it didn't even matter whether the Supreme Court ultimately found in favour of the scheme or not. It was not going to reduce the channel crossings. I tried to have an argument with some bonehead at some point, and it's like, how's it going to work? Oh, because it'll be a deterrent. How will it? Who's going to tell them? Like, even if they think to themselves, oh, there's like, they've got 100 plate, let's say they're really well informed. So then they recognize that there's like tens of thousands, like maybe 40, 45,000 people claiming asylum in the UK a year, and 100 of them, the spaces for 100 of them in Rwanda, right? So let's say, so they're shit at maths and they don't realize that's still pretty good odds. Who's going to tell them? Like, I don't know what the asylum policy of, say, Morocco or Egypt or Turkey is. So how on earth is someone who was having a bit of a life and then, you know, it all went to shit in their homeland and they had to flee, and they go, well, I know people in UK or, you know, whatever, and they come to the UK. And who's going to tell them? Are the people traffickers going to tell them, oh, yeah, I'll absolutely take your £2,000 to get on this thing, but I should probably just tell you first, there's a good chance you're going to Rwanda, not the UK. No, they're not going to tell them. Who's going to tell them? It's all, the whole concept is bollocks.
Yeah.
Like, however you look at it, it was never actually going to achieve anything. And it's like so obviously they must have thought, we don't actually have to achieve anything. We just have to look like we're achieving something. But Reform UK are always going to be that party that says, we've got a different plan that will achieve something. They're not achieving anything. The only way they had of winning those people over who thought that asylum's a problem is to actually impact the figures.
Yeah.
This was never going to do.
Yeah, but
it's only ever going to keep it in the news. All it was going to do is keep it in the news and highlight their failure on an almost monthly basis.
But I mean, the idea that you can reduce immigration by doing it this way has received a further kick in the nuts, which is that if you aren't a fucking millionaire, you can't marry someone from abroad.
Yeah.
And so lots of families are now making plans to leave the country. A lot of fairly high earning families, even if they are earning more than £38,700 a year, they might be thinking, listen, that might go up.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen with my business next year. I don't know how it's going with my job. We can't risk it. The kids are the kids are going to be joining school next year. I don't want their lives being disrupted and then being taken to the other side of the planet. So we are going to move to X, Y, Z. And that means that the actual figures, because don't forget, whenever we hear the migration figures, it's always the net migration figures.
Yeah.
So it's once you actually, take away the people who have left the UK. And what's going to happen in the future is more people are going to leave the UK. It's as simple as that.
We're going to have a massive skills gap as well.
Yeah, and so they'll be able to say, oh, the net figure's gone down. And I say, well, yeah, because people are bloody left.
Well, the way they're trying to do it as well, things like trying to reduce the number of people who come here to study. And it's like, well, that's a student. Can't you at least, even for the gammon, separate out a work visa and a student visa? Because they're coming here as basically, they're like tourists who spend way more money.
Yeah.
Their student visa doesn't allow them then to stay. I mean, first of all, we should be happy if they would, but it doesn't. It's just here to study. They're coming here to spend a shitload of money.
Yeah, and a lot of universities rely on foreign students.
All of them now, mate. All of them.
It's one of the few growth areas that Brexit hasn't knackered. Our higher education secretary,
because of the foreign students. Now, if it was just up to if universities could only have British students, they'd be knackered because the amount that they get in tuition fees from the students isn't enough. It doesn't measure up to what they used to get proportionally back in like the 90s before students had to pay their own tuition fees, what they used to get from the government.
Even then, you always used to get way more for foreign students.
Yeah. I just want to jump in with a super chat there from David Faulkner. Thank you very much for the super chat, David. An excellent chat with No Justice a fortnight ago, Ollie. I follow yourself, Graham H., Phil, Maximilian, and also Novara Media and Owen Jones. Your debate really highlighted the divisions on the left. It wasn't a debate; it was a discussion.
Yeah, it was a discussion. I didn't go in for a debate.
No.
But no, it was interesting to say the least. But I did actually have another conversation a couple of days later with Kevin Logan, and to be honest, I actually kind of really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that chat. I think that was a lot more productive. And especially talking with like Kevin, because he's been around on like the internet and like one of like the OG UK lefty commentators from like 2013. So he's been around quite a long time. But no, that was quite a good chat. A lot more productive, I think.
Well, I encourage everyone to go and check that out on Bowler Hatman's channel, which is at Bowler Hatman. So please check that out over on his channel. I'll put your links in the description actually once we've finished doing this. I'll put it into the title actually. But also, let's go back to earlier this month in the UK in politics. This proposed transition scheme for MPs losing seats. I was thinking about this the other day. This isn't going to be for any Labour MPs, is it? Because I know there's a couple of Labour MPs who are standing down in the next election, but no Labour MPs are going to lose their seats, are they?
It'd be really very unlikely.
Yeah, very, very few, to be honest.
So this is a scheme just for Tory MPs because they know they're going to lose at least 100 seats, maybe 200, maybe more.
I mean,
could be more.
In a way, I'm sort of not against it. In some ways,
I'm not. To be honest, I don't mind. I think, like especially if you consider. So let's take, for example, Mid Bedfordshire, which was won by a Labour candidate. It's probably going to flip back to the Tories. So if you want decent candidates, you were asking someone to take a job, a high-profile job that could actually sour their ability to get a normal job in future for basically a few months, maybe a year. So I am not at all opposed to a very big golden parachute for any MP losing their seat, as long as it's not via a recall petition, in which case Sodom.
Yeah.
But if they lose it at the election, and their staff, because they get a bit of a parachute for their staff, but again, it's, and these are people on really crap wages. I have no problem with a very big golden parachute for them. It wouldn't cost that much, and it means that you're not put off entering Parliament as someone on an ordinary income who has a mortgage and all the usual stuff.
Okay, so later in the month, Mark Drakeford even resigned as leader of the Welsh Labour, and also Michelle Mone went on Laura Kunsberg's show with her husband Doug Barrowman to say that she'd done nothing wrong when she took £60 million off the taxpayer for dodgy PPE that didn't work during a pandemic, PPE that they paid over the odds for, PPE that literally wasn't fit for purpose. The gowns weren't anyway. They did use the masks. She felt that £60 million was job well done because they took a risk.
It was 67 million, which in today's money is 81 million.
They took a risk, Phil. They they spent an entire morning making phone calls to suppliers to get stuff over to
the government. Paid these made-up companies. This company did not exist until May 2020, and they paid them in advance for the stuff. There was zero risk.
It was risky.
Of course, there's Matt Hancock's pub landlord as well.
He put him on to someone.
Yeah.
That was another thing that I thought might come up later.
I just love to have been there in the pub, saying to his local landlord, "Oh, I need to get some like masks and everything." I know a fella. I'll see you right now.
I'll sort you out, Hancock. My old Macca, my old chum. I'll pour you a pint. We'll have a chat.
Absolutely.
This came out as well today because of that interview. New European are going to be suing Michelle Mone.
Yes.
She tried to sue them, and the way they expressed it is they actually explained at one point. So she tried to sue us, and we told her to fuck off. That's actually how they characterized it.
Yeah. Also, Sunak's announced legal action against PPE Med Pro. So, there is a chance they could end up in jail. I believe that their assets have been frozen in the UK.
Oh, yeah. Well, she's complaining about it, certainly. The problem is, of course, what they're doing is trying to make an example out of what, so they had £203 million worth of contracts, but it's 2 contracts. Only one of them is disputed. And we know that there's just on PPE, what is it? £4.5 to £5 million worth of fraud believed. So what's happening to the rest?
Yeah.
They're doing this. This is like Roman Abramovich. So they can say, oh, we're cracking down on the oligarchs. So who's the most famous Russian oligarch in the country? Roman Abramovich. Right, we'll give him a hard time and let everyone else off.
But
Yeah,
We're
it
doing the
is.
same here.
we
Yeah.
need to keep stressing that she is, she was a Conservative peer.
Yeah.
She was well in with the Conservative Party because
Well, that's how she got it.
this
on
is
the
actually
POP,
cutting through to Conservative voters, even the ones who are still hanging on to the idea that the Tories might be somehow
And appointed by
honourable in
David
any way,
Cameron
shape,
as
or
well.
form. Yeah.
Yep.
We need to keep, pushing the fact that all of them are so bloody dreadful.
Yeah.
And talking about being bloody dreadful, our new Home Secretary, James Cleverly, or Jimmy Dimley, as he's referred to by John Crace in the Guardian, made a joke this week about spiking his wife's drink
Yeah, we were Rohypnol. Yeah.
with Rohypnol.
But
in the
Rishi
same-
Sunak considers this matter closed. So,
Of
you know,
course he
that's
does.
it. End of discussion.
in the same week that the UK government announced an amendment on drink spiking, which is a huge problem in the UK. And it's exacerbated by the fact that, as was in the newspapers today, crime is going through the roof because the prisons are full and a lot of people who want to commit, say, sexual assaults know that there's a very good chance of them getting away with it. So the idea that they'll go to jail or even go to trial is not a deterrent anymore because the Tories underfunding legal aid, underfunding the legal
take
system.
years to come to court, and
Yeah.
obviously victims of sexual assault, it's a hell of a process to ask them to go
Yep.
through over that period of time.
Yep, memories fade. Yep, as well. That's another big problem for if you
Yeah.
again, Secret Barrister.
Yes,
It's a
Follow the
fantastic
Secret
book.
Barrister if you want to learn more about this stuff.
Yeah.
'Cause honestly, shocking what the stuff that she posts. It's like how bad is it? Oh, it's really bad. It's really bad.
Okay. So we've got 5 minutes left, guys. I'm going to run through everything else that happened in the year that wasn't to do with British politics necessarily. Barbenheimer. The Las Vegas bollock. They've got a big lit bollock in the middle of Las Vegas now, which is cool. Taylor Swift was announced to be Person of the Year by Time Magazine, much to the chagrin of everyone. The Mario movie came out. There was a SAG-AFTRA strike. The actors went on strike. The writers went on strike about AI. And AI has been dominating the news this year as well, with the advent of Midjourney and Chat GPT. And I know some people were using it before this year, but it really came into its own this year. Twitter changed into X and lost £30 billion of its value. And Threads became a thing, which is basically Twitter, but it's run by Zuckerberg or Fuckerberg.
He's a very trustworthy fellow.
Yeah, very trustworthy. There was the Hamas attack on October the 7th that led to the invasion of Gaza and the absolute carnage that is happening there at the moment. Over 20,000 civilians have been killed so far, although the Israelis will dispute whether they were all innocent bystanders. Also, we had the countdown clock to Armageddon put out by the it's like the nuclear physicists, the international nuclear physicists. It's been moved to 90 seconds to midnight, the closest to midnight it's ever been to the end of the world. And also 2023 was the hottest year on record in everywhere in the world. As I mentioned earlier, there were fires in Canada, Chile, Greece, Hawaii. There were storms and hurricanes all over the world, not least in Hong Kong and also in the UK. And we had the COP20, the Committee of Parties, where they're supposed to meet up. This is the 28, COP28. This is the 28th time they met up, and this is the first time they've actually said, yeah, maybe we should stop using all those fossil fuels. But the actual language that was employed, instead of phasing out fossil fuels, it was like toning down fossil fuels.
Well,
it was
like held in Dubai, wasn't it, or something?
Yes, it was held in the United Arab Emirates, and the guy who was in charge, a guy called Al Jaber, was actually in charge. He's the head of one of the biggest oil companies in the world.
Yeah,
and they used it to make deals.
Yes.
Yep. Didn't he say that if we were to go to like net zero, we'd all end up back in like the Stone Age or something like that?
Yes.
We abandoned oil.
Yeah, it did indeed. Right. Orcas were attacking people's ships. A submersible imploded, filled with billionaires.
Oh yeah.
Which was held the public attention for at least a week. Sam Bankman-Fried, the biggest con artist since Elon Musk, is now looking forward to over 100 years in jail for his crimes, in which he lost $26 billion overnight.
Oh, if you're going to mention, are you going to mention what's his face, the Sandy Hook nutter? In the same breath, he was
Alex
Jones. Yeah.
Jones.
He's been sued for quite a pretty penny.
He's been sued into oblivion, but he's still out there making videos
Yeah.
on Truth Social and what's that? Rumbler or whatever it's called, Rumble, which is owned by a far right lunatic called Peter Thiel, who runs Planeteer, which to any Lord of the Rings nerds knows is the evil orbs that weren't evil originally, but they became evil. They became evil because of Sauron in the books. Yeah. And it's the reason why, one of the reasons why my company is called Erindil Star, because that's the light that from Erindil Star that Frodo and Sam used against the big spider.
Shelob,
who was a daughter of Ungoliant.
Yes.
Anyway, people talked about how old Biden was and kind of ignored the fact that Trump is only a couple of years younger than him, and also Mitch McConnell, who is the majority leader in the Senate, the minority leader in the Senate in America, kept on malfunctioning through for his when he was talking to the camera, which is a bit embarrassing for the Republican Party, but not as embarrassing as the fact that Trump had his mugshot taken this year after 4 different criminal investigations in court were brought against him, with 4 indictments with 91 charges in all. But I'm sure he's innocent.
Yeah, we had the whole House Speaker as well thing play out as well this year.
Yes.
Chaos in the House.
The chaos in the House, because the House Speaker was eventually elected in January on the grounds that one person could get rid of him. And no
one would get rid of him. No one was.
No one. There was a spy balloon over America, which ended up getting shot down over South Carolina, I think, or North Carolina. One of the Carolinas out to sea. There was a sample taken from an asteroid, which is very exciting for people in NASA. There was a train wreck in Ohio, the train full of chemicals, toxic chemicals. That was a bit of a worry. There was also a massive earthquake in Morocco and Turkey and Syria. There was obviously the war in Ukraine is ongoing, and also Bolsonaro in Brazil tried to organize his own January the 6th, but he didn't actually organize it on January the 6th, and it went just as well as the January the 6th riots, except in January the 6th the lawmakers were actually in the Capitol building, whereas the lawmakers weren't actually in the buildings in Brasilia at the time of this failed insurrection by Bolsonaro after he'd been ousted as president by Da Silva in Brazil. 1.7 million Afghans were told to leave Pakistan. Mass shootings in the USA didn't stop for some reason. I don't know why. There's been a lot of efforts to ban TikTok, including it being banned from ministers' phones, MPs' phones, not allowed to use TikTok in Parliament. And also in America, I think Colorado tried to ban TikTok. Didn't go down too well. Affirmative action is now gone the way of Roe versus Wade in America, so we can't actually make it so that people from disadvantaged backgrounds can have the same opportunities as people from advantaged backgrounds, which seems unfair, but whatever. The Pope said that Catholics can now bless gay or same-sex couples, and meanwhile in Uganda you can now be thrown in jail for life for engaging in gay sex. And there was a boycott of Bud Light because a transgender person was in an advert for them. No, it wasn't even an advert. We just literally did an Instagram post in which she posed with some cans of Bud Light that had a picture on it that had been specially made for her. Okay, I'll move on. In Mexico, while America was, last year they backheeled Roe versus Wade, so abortion care is not something that you can get in places like Texas. In Mexico, they made it a human right. Spain won the World Cup against England. The Women's World Cup, the only one worth watching. Everything Everywhere All at Once won the Best Picture Oscar, which is quite a fun movie. But I really freaked out with the people with the really long sausage fingers. And India landed on the moon. Also, Mandelson's back and Cameron's back. And we got a £10 super chat from Ian McKenna. Thank you very much. Can I ask each of you, what's your personal funniest point of the year? Thank you. Oh, actually, that'd be a good way of rounding off the show. So, guys, what were your personal funniest bits of the year? Do I need to give you a minute?
I can give you a non-UK one just to start us off, because I think I talked about this on Geoscope. What I considered the funniest thing to happen
the
this
Filipino
year.
bloody cryptocurrency thing.
For those of you who don't know, here's the quick TDLR. Essentially, a company in the Philippines came up with essentially Pokemon but with cryptocurrency,
So
where you can mine
NFT
cryptocurrency
Pokemon.
by using this game. And essentially what happened was that North Korean hackers hacked into this and stole all the cryptocurrency. And now this has gone to fund nuclear weapons development in North Korea.
Jesus Christ. You know that's not funny.
I know, but it's just so bizarre that happens.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Big thank you to GHK for the £5 super chat. Biggest UK political news this year. It was the birth of Labour Social. Thanks, GHK. I love you. And also, Rachel says, Graham, did you see Rosie Duffield is being investigated for anti-Semitism? She may be suspended, and a new candidate swung in. She liked an anti-Jewish tweet by Graham Linehan. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know about that. But yeah,
I didn't know he was going into that as well. I thought he was just transphobic. Is he going to full? He's full on loony now.
Do you think Graham? Thank you very much, Rachel, for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Do you think Graham Linehan's going to do his annual New Year's drunken rage against trans people?
I don't know. I've not seen it. I technically probably do follow him. I followed him for a while because with like the trans thing, I tried to. It's too tribal for me to really want to dip my fingers into it. But I just feel that like there were some people who were transphobic, and there are some people who were just like have like fears or something. And you just like thinking, can we just talk to these people? And I got the idea that Graham Linehan was one of the or was involved in it. I thought, well, I like Father Ted. Let's see what he's like. And I thought, oh my fucking God,
it's terrifying.
He's absolutely insane, isn't he?
But the word is that what tipped him over the edge is that a close family member is trans. And that's basically cost him his entire family.
Don't that usually help because then you know someone?
No, because he can't accept it. He can't accept it for whatever reason in his tiny little head. And it is sad. It's the same with J.K. Rowling. It's sad these people were people that I really
see. Loved. I don't know with her because I don't follow her, so I don't necessarily I'll see some things she's written, and I thought, well. Are people just having a pop because she's not on the trans side? Is it just tribal or what? Whereas Graham Linehan, because I followed him, and I read some of the stuff, and I thought, this is wow. Where have you gone, mate?
It's a bit much. But the one thing J.K. Rowling did, this was last October, well, not last October, the October before. She did an interview. I think might have been for the Times, and she said we need to stop assuming innocence of certain minorities. And it's like, isn't that the law that you assume innocence until proven guilty? But apparently you should suspend that for
I didn't know she'd said that.
Wink, wink.
My God.
Yeah, it was a bit
that was something else that happened this year, the whole Russell Brand stuff as well.
Oh, yes, didn't mention that. No one saw that coming?
Or Dan Wootton. He's still, apparently, I need to check this out, I suppose. He's still apparently on his bios on social media saying he's like GB News, but GB News have now officially,
they've binned him.
He's still. I'm just looking at Twitter. He's still got the GBN icon next to his name, and it still says executive editor and presenter of Dan Wootton Tonight, GB News.
Do you know who's been replaced with?
No,
we're gonna get replaced with Boris Johnson. that'll be.
I probably did though, and just didn't know them.
It's been replaced by, I don't know, bloody Peter Andre or Craig David or someone.
All right. You did mention Peter Andre before, didn't you?
Yeah, that's weird. Why on earth would you choose Peter Andre?
The thing is, he's retweeting at any rate. I can't see any actual Twitter posts from him for a while, but I can see retweets even as 11 hours ago. So he's still active. And yet it says executive editor and presenter of Dan Wootton Tonight on GB News. 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Monday to Thursday, and columnist Mail Online. Well, they binned him before GB News did. They binned him immediately, in fact.
Wow.
So he's still claiming that it's GB
probably
News.
Loads of news stories that we should probably have picked up on. But
I mean, Lee Anderson.
We've only had 3 hours. There's a lot's happened this year.
Lee Anderson's got that on his Twitter account. Mike Galsworthy was pointing out, and it reminded me of the Robin Williams. I don't know whether he actually said it or it's attributed to him, but he said politicians should wear branding so that we know, NASCAR things, so we know who owns them. And it's a bit like, well, Lee Anderson's basically doing that because he's got his GB News logo by his name on Twitter. Doesn't have Conservative Party.
No.
If I let's look up.
Oh, well, he might have maybe accepted that offer from Reform UK.
Maybe. Yeah, if
find
you
that
look at it,
interesting.
Lee Anderson, he's got his grey affiliate thing because he's an MP, and then next to it's the GBN logo. It's nothing, no logo for the Conservative Party.
Isn't that interesting though? Because you see this quite a lot, don't you? In a lot of Tory MPs don't actually put the Conservative MPs.
Well, he has put it in his bio. He says, proud Conservative MP for Ashfield and Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party. So his bio says that, but by his name, there's a symbol for GB News, like all the GB News presenters, but nothing for the Conservative Party.
Well, no, I was thinking of like the lecture material that went out in the locals.
Oh, yeah.
Which didn't
But they used
actually
green.
They used
They always
green.
use green. And then you poke it. Oh, no, it's House of Commons green. You see, I'm an MP. Yeah, you're a Conservative MP.
They didn't want to say Conservative.
Yeah.
Which is
I wonder who
understandable.
came up with that. That's
Yeah.
what was your thinking behind that?
So
Where you
Phil,
thought, yes, it's not the Green Party. It's House of Commons Green.
yeah. So Phil, what was your funniest news story? What made you chuckle?
I don't
this
know what
year?
my funniest news story. There was a thing where GB News were promoting this taxi driver, right? And like what I think was the funniest tweet was he was, and I saw just the clip of it because it's Otto English's response that made me really piss myself. But this thing, it says, this David Perry, GB News sort of promoted it. Like all these historical legends, they are based on fact somewhere in the past. Julius Caesar, Nero, Jesus, King Arthur, Alfred, Norman the Conqueror, blah, blah, blah. And then Otto English replies, well done, David. Finally, someone is sticking up for Norman the Conqueror. And you just sort of think, these are the sort of people that are given prominence in our national debates. These people who know fuck all, but they think they do. Like, who was it, Mark Twain or someone who says, it's about, it's like if someone doesn't know something, they don't know it. But, if someone thinks they do, it's really hard to sort of say, look, do you maybe want to reconsider that? Norman the fucking Conqueror. And these are the people who are so sure of themselves.
Hello?
I don't know if my
Hello?
sound occasionally goes. I don't know.
No, I was just mouthing to Catherine.
Oh, right.
She asked me a question. I didn't want it to come on the mic.
That will be that then.
Because
Because I do worry, because sometimes my headphones might, because they're wireless, they might just get bored. And just go, I'm off.
I should have just pressed the mute button, but yeah, Catherine's a world-class lip reader, so we can just do that. But yeah, that's amazing. Norman the Conqueror. I think that I want to move away. Well, I have moved away from Twitter because it's become so toxic in the last year. I mean, it was always pretty bad. But I was talking about today. I was talking with a friend of mine about YouTube and the fact that the actual discussion in YouTube, as you can see in the chat here, is a lot better and more constructive than it is on Twitter or even on Threads, and certainly on Facebook. They seem to have the whatever algorithm it is that kicks people out.
It's because they have to.
I know it's because they have. That's what makes sense.
They had a concerted attack on them by various other media in the UK and America a few years ago.
Yeah.
Because they were seen as this big challenge to the established media.
Yeah, but also they were allowing terrorist groups to post stuff and radicalize people.
Well, I mean, that's what they were accused of.
Yeah.
By established media who wanted YouTube gone because they saw it as a threat. But at the same time, YouTube sort of therefore dealt with it. They had to deal with it, and they did. So YouTube is effectively, it's got the most advanced infrastructure, really, I think.
Yeah.
It's Twitter is that ideal platform for getting information disseminated really quickly from experts. Experts aren't going to sit around making videos.
No.
But they can tweet something really quickly. So you can't really, that's why, if I had the following on Twitter that I have on YouTube, I would have like so much more grief because, I would be known. Whereas no sod knows me, no one in politics or the media knows who I am. And yet, what do I get now? Let's have a look. What have I had in the last? Like 660,000 unique viewers in the last 4 weeks.
Whoa. So
Which
you're
is
getting
way
you're getting
over
the message
Labour.
out, mate.
This is way over Labour membership levels.
Yeah.
So it's actually gone up since that Labour social thing we did at the conference, where I was talking about 320,000 from the UK. Now it's like about 500,000. If I did it for just the UK, it's getting on for about 500,000 a month. And Labour are missing out on it. But everyone's missing out on it. Well, not everyone. Ordinary people are watching it. But people who aren't watching it are journalists and politicians.
Yeah.
Because it's not their arena.
Yeah. Leg is asking if I'm on Blue Sky. I keep getting Blue Sky codes sent to me, but I haven't actually signed up to it yet.
Yeah, I haven't made the jump to Blue Sky either. I've played with it because obviously I come from a marketing background, but I still think it's still too complex. It's like why Mastodon didn't take off.
Yeah,
if you remember, we're all going to go to Mastodon now. Now Twitter's gone, but
too long.
That sort of failed, and I think Blue Sky is sort of the same thing.
The two ats put people off. It was at this, at that. Yeah, not great. Also worth mentioning that Robert Buckland said last week that we need to protect against AI being used in the upcoming election next year.
Yes, which we're not going to, because the Tories think it's actually going to work in their advantage.
The thing is, right, I'm going to say this about AI at the moment, and I'm this is what I think of it, right? We still can't make photorealistic people talk, AI people, computer generated people, talk in movies and still make it look right. Grand Moff Tarkin in Rogue One, and also
that was
Princess
actually quite
Leia at the end. No, but you knew it was fake. Like it wasn't.
Yeah,
it wasn't perfect.
But nonetheless, you look at some of the
valley.
shit that people fall for on social media, which is way less convincing.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is that
we haven't
got to the point where it's going to fool people. It's not going to fool me at the moment.
No, it doesn't have to. It has to just fool people who believe what they see or hear on social media. And we had that like spoofing of Keir Starmer and stuff like that.
Yeah, but no one really believed that. Do you know what people believed? They believed that Keir Starmer got Jimmy Savile off because fucking Boris Johnson said that in the House of Commons. And that's a bigger issue to me at the moment. I still think that there's still a massive uncanny valley with AI. It doesn't look quite right, and I don't think it's going to look quite right.
I think
I
do. I think we do need to take it much more seriously. But at the same time, that just because there are other cons that are better practice doesn't mean to say we can ignore another one. It's still one where it'll be most effective in the hands of the people with more money, and that's the Conservatives and their backers.
But they've already set up this idea that you can point to anything you don't agree with and say that's fake. That's fake news. They've invented fake news as an insult to anything that is actually true. But they want to pretend that it's fake. So the idea that we say, oh no, actually that's fake news, it's already been introduced into the lexicon. It's already
but they'll say not from this source. Not from this source. Not if it's in like the Telegraph or something.
Liam says, Graham, could you please mention my 18-year-old Olivia, who is one of the 99%? I will do. Merry Christmas, Olivia, and Happy New Year. And also Poon Inator. Thank you very much for the super chat. What song will everyone play to celebrate the election results? And we're going to have to wrap up in a few minutes. So if we can, what song, Ollie? Putting you on the spot. Also, we have a question from Hugh who wants to know, how would you market the Tories these days? So you can answer either question.
How would I market? How would I if I was? So if I was, are you talking if I was like working for CCHQ?
Yeah. How would you market?
How would I market? How would I get them out of this? Honestly, what Rishi Sunak should have stuck with his guns when he first came out and he got elected, and he said this is going to be the big turnaround moment. We are going to sort of restore trust and honor in politics. He should have gone in and passed some sort of law or bill that would have brought forward more parliamentary standards, he would have got a lot of round of applause. He would have been very good, and he could have declared, a Boris Johnson's, type government will never happen again because we have passed this bill, we have passed this law, and you could have gone forward and said, this is fantastic, look how amazing this is. And meanwhile, you could have passed all this other stuff in the background that could have been absolutely awful while maintaining the fact that you now have better MPs because you've passed these MP standards laws. In reality, you could essentially pass nothing and make it meaningless, but you could make a big song and dance about it. That's what I probably would have done if I was sort of marketing, maybe for the Tories.
Have you got anything for the song?
A
Rachel
song.
is suggesting Tiny Tears by the...
Things can only get better. Let's go for the old classic.
Rachel's suggesting Tiny Tears by the Tinder Sticks, which, or you could do a cover version that says Tory Tears, which would be quite fun. Phil, what do you reckon for your song for when
I
the
don't know
Tories
about a song.
are finally yeeted out of office?
I'm probably going to be quite miserable because I'm just going to think, thank Christ for that, and I hope Labour don't cock it up. I'm going to be quite apprehensive because unless we get electoral reform, serious electoral reform, I'm just going to think, right, this is just going to be the respite before in 10 to 15 years' time, it all goes back to shit again. And I'm not sure I can really go through with it again. In terms of how I would market the Tories right now, it is difficult because they don't have many personalities to work with who are willing to back the Conservatives. Because quite a lot of the big names like Suella Braverman, Priti Patel, Liz Truss and so on are not only actually very unpopular with the public, but it's in their interest that the Tories lose very badly. I was in a video today on The Guardian reckoning that if the Tories lost catastrophically, like fewer than 100 seats, it would actually increase the proportion of the far right in the parliamentary party. So that makes it easier for them to get someone of their type to take over. Yeah. Whereas if they only lost it merely disastrously, like 200 seats or something, then there's not enough of them, maybe, particularly if they're a bit divided. So it's in the interests of the far right Tories, at least the ones who think they can keep their seats, for not only their party to lose, but to lose badly.
Yeah.
So all they have to do is make sure they don't look disloyal, but they will want to sabotage their own party at the next election. What have you got to work with? Rishi Sunak is going to be awful. They know he's going to be awful. That's not just my view. He is awful. They know that. That's why he is never sent out on the crucial polling day for by-elections. He's told to just hide in a pissing fridge somewhere. I've said Grant Shapps is basically the only one. Michael Gove is not a complete idiot, but he's not personable. James Cleverly's an idiot.
We all saw Theresa Coffey.
Well, she's gone anyway. She's been binned.
Is she still even a Tory MP?
Yeah, but she's not in cabinet.
Oh, she's
not in government.
On the backbenches.
She's on the backbenches now. She can fit on them. I actually don't know what they've got to work with. Because I agree with that. There were things he could have done at the start, but it's like, the horse has bolted now. What would you do right now? All they can do is play dirty. That's all they've got.
Yeah.
It's like they can't. It's now too late to actually improve people's lives. So it's all a con. It's too late. The best I could do is advise them to stop paying attention to Reform UK voters and to pay more attention to the voters in the centre, which is where they're supposed to be fighting. Because although you can look at some polls and go, well, we've lost as many votes to Reform UK as we have to, say, Labour and the Lib Dems. That's true, but you ain't getting them back. Whereas you could, there are people out there who are, at the moment are saying they cannot bring themselves to vote for the Conservatives as they are now, right? That's what they're saying. They're saying they don't know who they're going to vote for. That doesn't mean to say they're not going to vote. So they should be trying to attract those people who are used to voting Conservative. They just want a reason to do it again. And you won't win the election, but you will limit the damage. You're not going to limit the damage by trying to out Reform UK with weaker policies than Reform UK have. What you need to do is to focus on those don't knows and give them a reason to come out, and for the sake of their party at least, give them something to vote for. And that's what my advice would be. It would not be taken because Rishi Sunak has shown that he's far too weak and possibly politically ignorant to take such advice. But that's what my advice to him would be.
Cool. Okay, well, I'll tell you what my songs would be, actually. So, on the 1st of May, 1997, I was at the Labato on Duke Street in Liverpool, and the news came downstairs. We were all downstairs at the time, and no one had a phone. So I didn't know how anyone found out. I think they found out from the bouncers somehow that Labour had won an absolute stonking landslide, and the DJ started playing Things Can Only Get Better by Divine, which is what Ollie just suggested. And then turned that off halfway through because it's not a great song. And played Song 2 by Blur, which had come out the month before, really loud. And then we all danced to that. And then played I Am the Resurrection by the Stone Roses. And if you read the lyrics of that, it's quite apt for getting rid of the Tories. So they're my two songs: Song 2 by Blur and I Am the Resurrection by the Stone Roses. Even though the lead singer of the Stone Roses has gone a bit mad in recent years, but then haven't we all? No, just me. Okay. So anyway, okay, so we're going to wrap it up there because we're coming up to 3.5 hours, guys. Although we did trot through the events of the year quite... I thought we did that quite well, Phil. Phil didn't think we were going to manage it. He thought it was going to be a disaster.
I wasn't entirely sure I was going to manage this pint of wine, but there you go, it's gone.
Have you finished the rest of it? Have you finished the whole bottle?
No. It was a pint. That's what Brexiteers insist. We need pints of wine. None of this 75 centilitres EU stuff, which apparently is actually all over the world because this is Australian.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of the standard, isn't it? But yes. Professor Brian Cox was in DV. Yes, he was.
Yes. I was at university then. So I was actually at Manchester University studying physics, which is where he now plies his trade. But that was when he was just a keyboard player.
And a few months later, I would be starting in Manchester because I started in 97. So there you go.
I won't tell you where I was back then because that'll make you feel old.
You were a twinkle in your daddy's eye.
Oh no, I was at primary school.
Oh, bless you. You sweet.
See, I was just starting my teaching career. So David Blunkett was my first education secretary. Because I started in 97, started my teacher training in September 97.
I started uni in 97. And so all my adult life until I was 31, I was under a Labour government. And then since then, it's been the Tories.
Yeah, well, I mean, my teaching career was split in two. It was like Labour, investment. And then Tories, investment gone, bye-bye. Overnight, it was really stark. I can't understand how you can actually have teachers or nurses or anyone like that be a Conservative supporter if they my age, because my teaching career started off like you had to have training. Oh, have you what training have you booked, Phil, this year? What training? You were expected to book training and go on it to enhance your skills. All of a sudden, after 2010. Oh, there's this training, looks good. Does it cost anything? Yeah, no. We'll pay for your travel if it's free. That was training. And no one asked you if you'd organised any training that year. It was overnight, literally overnight, straight away from, you need to go on all this training, enhance your skills to, we're going to do training in-house now. Yeah. Tim's got this great idea. He's going to teach us how to make balloons for our training day. That was how it went.
Brilliant. Love it. All right, well, we're gonna have to end it there, guys. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to Ollie and to Phil, and to Josh and Aid who joined us tonight, and to Wayne wherever the hell he went.
He went to sleep. You know where
he fell asleep.
Fell asleep. In fact, he only came on because his face probably hit the keyboard.
I think he's in Sweden, actually. We got a message off him saying he was in Sweden. But thank you, everyone.
Will this become the running joke next year?
Yes, it will.
Is Wayne asleep?
It will. Is Wayne asleep? So thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for the chat and for the super chats. Really, really appreciate that. That keeps this channel going. with Labour Social's done really well this year, and we hope next year we're going to do even better and have more shows for you and more content that you will enjoy. So if you want to help us in doing what we're doing here, please become a patron or YouTube member and help us out with a little contribution each month, just £3 or £4, and that makes all the difference. It really does, and allows us to keep our heads above water, so to speak. I hope you all had a great Christmas and have a fantastic New Year. I'm going to take the weekend off now, but I should be back on Monday morning. I'm going to try my best to do a morning brew on Monday morning, but I need to warn you that we're having a party in our house the night before. I'm having people staying over. There's a chance that I might have to dismantle my whole studio, so I might be doing the morning brew on my phone. But I'm going to try my best. So hopefully we'll see you then. Everyone in the chat saying Happy New Year. Band of Harp Jays is saying that, and Cathal.
Oh yes, Happy New Year to everyone in the chat.
Election year.
Yes.
It'll be another 2019. Full on crazy. Except in 2019, we didn't know we didn't necessarily know we were entering an election year.
No,
this
that's
time
true.
we do.
No, 2024 will be the biggest year for democracy in history, in which more people are going to vote than ever before.
70 elections worldwide next year.
70 elections. Blimey. It's going to be quite epic. So we're gonna stay on though through the election, and then after the election we're going to keep making content for you and keep trying to push Labour in a direction that we want them to go in. Once they're elected, can we just wait till they're elected and then we can do that? So anything that you guys would like to add before I just say sayonara?
No, I feel
Happy
quite
New Year to
sleepy
everyone,
now.
really.
Yeah, I've had a pint of wine and some cheese and cake. I'm quite sleepy now.
Okay. Well, again, thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you in 2024. And until then, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.
Yeah. See you next year.
Woo!